मेदिनि नन्दितमेदिनि विश्वविनोदिनि नन्दिनुते गिरिवरविन्द्यशिरोदिनि वासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णुनुते भगवति हेशिति कण्ठकुटुम्बिनि भूरि कुटुम्बिनि भूरि कृते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते सुरवरवर्षिणि दुर्धरदर्शिनि दुर्मुखमर्षिणि हर्षरते त्रिभुवनपोषिणि शङ्करतोषिणि किल्बिषमोषिणि घोषरते धनुजनिरोषिणि दिथिश्रुतरोषिणि दुर्मथतोषिणि सिन्धुसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते
Hi guys, thank you for joining the live stream. It's been many months, I think, since we did a live stream at this hour. My sleep cycle has changed again a little bit. So thank you for joining at this hour. Now, I want to apologize first of all for the last live stream. Some things went awry a little bit, I think. I was feeling very restless and overwhelmed, which is why I was stammering more than usual. I pronounced a lot of things wrongly. And that happened because I'll tell you what happened actually just before the live stream. I was on a phone call with mysterious sociologist for about 2.5 hours, and we discussed something insanely dense about a certain societal phenomenon. And someday, when his name is revealed, you all will know. And someday, when he gets to write in more significant he has already written in significant publications. Someday, when he goes on writing in significant publications, and all of you all read them, and he has some significant post to contribute to in society, you all will realize that he's actually a very genius analyst of things. So anyway, we had a very long 2.5 hour long dense conversation, and right after that, my instincts were telling me to, let's say, okay, of course I must chew over it, everything we discussed. Let's ponder over it a little bit. And instead of that, I decided, okay, I have not done a live stream yesterday and I think last 2 days, so let's start the live stream. So instead, I sat down on Canva, made my thumbnail, and announced the live stream. So that was where I screwed up, I think. And the wrong time, wrong coffee, etc. But anyway, which is why that elderly gentleman, Shubhajit Shen, asked something. It was, of course, I somehow took offense at it for no reason, and I spoke to him unnecessarily rudely because I do often reply rudely to audience members. So I'm not saying it as a universal thing that I will never be rude to any of my audience members. It's not that, but that question did not deserve such a rude response. He said that he thinks that Adam Smith has been responsible for the genocide of Native Americans done by the American state or the British that or the Europeans that came there, etc. And I said that you don't know what you're talking about because the Europeans came in 1492, whereas Wealth of Nations came out in 1776, and this book came out in 1759. But yes, I should not have said that. But of course, I could have said that. It is what it is. 1492, 1776. So they had 250 years almost to do their genocides. They did not really need Adam Smith to convince them of doing genocides. Okay. Now, another thing I screwed up in the last live stream is that the end was pretty abrupt as well. I did not know that, oh my God, it's already 10:05. I had my dinner to get to. I needed to feed medicines to my pet dogs. So I forgot to mention that we ended at a pretty nice spot. We ended at a nice end of a nice subchapter, and actually we are going to start from a new subchapter now. I forgot to mention all of these things. I suddenly went offline. Lol. And another thing I want to mention, now my apology is done. Another thing I want to mention about Adam Smith is that, okay, for those of you who are watching just this live stream for the first time, remember that we have discussed insane things in the first live stream already, okay? Do go over that one as well. Mainly, what I want to what I want to tell you all is that, remember, Adam Smith was actually not a very healthy kid. Okay, by healthy I don't mean the word. Bengalis will know what I'm talking about. In Bengal, when someone says that your kid is a little healthy, it means he's a fat, obese kid. Okay, so I'm saying healthy in the real non insane in the fitness sense. So he was not a healthy kid. He was almost bedridden with different kinds of diseases. So his mother kept him in a very much protected manner. And what happens in these situations is that either you become a complete outcast in society, you can't relate with anyone, etc., or you become a prodigy of sorts, or basically you become both. So he was a math prodigy growing up, then he becomes a professor of logic, then he becomes a professor of moral philosophy, then he becomes, of course, the authority on economics. Now, what I want you all to appreciate here is that, remember, therefore, he's bringing sort of the mathematical scientist kind of an analytic mind to philosophy. He's not just some cigarette smoking guy from Jadavpur University. Okay, maximum philosophers are not healthy or they become unhealthy. Yes. Okay, let's start now. So this subchapter now, as we are discussing, that Amartya Sen has done absolute brilliant things in some portions. In some portions, he has done sinisterly tried to do rebranding of Adam Smith in different portions, and we'll get to where he can be argued is knowingly or unknowingly against reservation. Now, he has discussed all the topics of the book in different subchapters in his introduction. So this subchapter is called, the topic that he's going to get to now is markets and the need for other institutions. The spirited attempt to see Adam Smith as an advocate of pure capitalism, with complete reliance on the market mechanism guided by pure profit motive, is altogether misconceived. Adam Smith never used the term capitalism, which is of course true, because capitalism was used as a pejorative term against the idea of free markets. I have certainly not found an instance. More importantly, he was not aiming to be the great champion of the profit-based market mechanism, nor was he arguing against the importance of economic institutions other than the markets. And I am pretty much in favor of economic institutions, because someone has to have the danda. Interestingly, I think the word danda has come from the word danda only, that someone has some preventive measure to prevent bad behavior. So, especially contract enforcement, stuff like that. So Smith was convinced of the necessity of a well-functioning market economy, but he was not convinced of its sufficiency. Interesting. It is necessary, but it's not everything. Interesting nuance, no? He argued powerfully against many false diagnoses of terrible, quote-unquote, commissions of the market economy. And yet, nowhere did he deny that the market economy yields important, quote-unquote, omissions. He rejected market excluding interventions, but he did not exclude he rejected market excluding interventions, but he did not reject market including interventions aimed at doing those important things that the market may leave undone. Okay, you all, I guess, understand what this sentence is saying, right? Interventions from the state or from institutions which behave in such a way that almost ignores how the market is supposed to operate, and tries to go around doing its own thing. Adam Smith rejects those. He does not reject institutions who do take into account how markets actually operate, how they best operate, etc. Now, up until now, in theory, what Amartya Sen is diagnosing here, I absolutely agree with that notion as well. That yes, you should not reject market including interventions. But my concern is that, since Amartya Sen is a big fan of Mamata Banerjee, I wonder what he means by market including interventions. That's the problem. Bhupendra Mandal, this is for your dedication and passion. Just carry on. Thank you very much, Bhupendra. Oh, yeah. Now I remember. Assessa Delindia said, Jai Jagannath. Yes, so Jai Jagannath to you too. Okay. Then a big comment from him. Let's see what he's saying. Dada, discussion শুরু হওয়ার আগে তোমার মত বলো, আমরা জেনারেল তথাকথিত আপার কাস্টদের ডিমনিফিকেশনটা কবে বন্ধ হবে? হাউ এম আই রেসপন্সিবল ফর সামথিং মাই অ্যানসেস্টার? কিছু তো, you don't have much in your hands, because in the end either you have to have financial might or you have to have population might. Now, the people in the upper castes who do have financial might, they are far removed from these topics. They don't care really. At best, what they can come up with is the sloganeering and just the reactions that no, casteism never happened, or caste just means class, etc. Those less educated counter arguments that have only recently come up. Up until now, though, people just felt the guilt that yes, my ancestors have been really bad, and I must be spanked. Now have people have realized that, Are bhai, stop spanking me. If at all something bad happened, it was done by my ancestors. What the fuck can I do? So at best, I can this will seem like a self promotion, obviously, but keep talking on the lines that we have discussed with mysterious sociologist and Max Weber, Pierre Bourdieu. I think they are your saviors to come up with the different argument. One argument is, of course, that casteism never happened. One argument is that if casteism happened, it's a good thing that it happened. One argument is that yes, casteism happened. It happened only in India, and therefore all your descendants are also to be blamed. And the Max Weber, Pierre Bourdieu, mysterious sociologist line of argument is that they were simply status groups. Status groups happen everywhere. They are status groups in some way or the other, even today. Like we have discussed in the case of West Bengal, almost every Bengali you know is from the topmost caste, or if not from the Boido or the castes. So are they also discriminating against all Shudras coming into the Tollywood or something? Did Saurabh Ganguly prevent a Shudra cricketer from getting into cricket? No. So diagnose the fucking problem properly. Leftists are not diagnosing the problem properly, and the casteism denying right wingers are denying even the problem happened. Okay, so the problem is that so the ideal is that you diagnose it properly. Only then you will be able to solve it properly, because we are not solving any abstract imaginary idea called casteism. We are actually trying to solve for something called statusism, status-based bad behavior. So get to that, or at least I mean stay in line with that. Okay, let's continue. So Adam Smith rejected market excluding interventions, but he did not exclude market including interventions aimed at doing those important things like, in my opinion, contract enforcement, that the market may leave undone. Smith saw the task of political economy as the pursuit of two distinct objects. First object, to provide a plentiful, now we are quoting Adam Smith here only, okay? First, to provide a plentiful revenue or subsistence for the people, or more properly, to enable them to provide such a revenue or subsistence for themselves. Aha. See, everyone, all the commies will agree with the first sentence, right? Provide a plentiful revenue or subsistence for the people, redistribute Rahul Gandhi's lawns, or not, redistribute only Narendra Modi's watches. But the second line, Adam Smith says, or more properly, even Adam Smith says that this is in fact more important, that enable them to provide such a revenue for or subsistence for themselves. You don't give a man a bag of fish, okay? Then you'll have to go on giving the man a bag of fish. You teach him how to fish. And secondly, to supply the state or commonwealth with a revenue sufficient for the public services. This is why I said this seems like a English version of Arthashastra. He defended such public... See, capitalism, libertarianism, all these things are very much have an enmity towards taxes. Even I do. And you should have enmity towards taxes. But of course, on zero taxes, things can't operate, because when I'm calling for that contract enforcement, even that has to happen from, even that bureaucrat or that third party guy, technocrat, has to be hired on the basis of taxes. Or if not in an extremely hypothetical good libertarian state scenario in India, at best those two companies can hire with their own money some guy to enforce contracts. More often than not, it's easier to do. It's in theory easier to do with probably the state. But my point here is that note that same Adam Smith, accused of being the father of capitalism, who is also considered the father of all of their ideas by people who would ask for zero taxes and stuff. I don't hate those people. I don't hate people who say zero taxes. But what's important to note here, that Adam Smith was not that guy. Adam Smith was not their messiah. Adam Smith is more in line with Chanakya, because he's clearly saying that the Commonwealth or the state must have sufficient revenue. This is everything that Chanakya has ever said. Lavesh is saying status-based discrimination will always happen because it's pretty much human nature to show ourselves superior to others. Yeah, now this is where I have a concern that this sentence is 100% true and I don't know you. I do have a certain concern that now people will go on saying, now people will use this statement as a slogan that therefore let's not bother about casteism happening today because it will happen anyway. No, that is not the also not the correct way. Okay, the correct way to think about it is that staticism is inevitable, but every staticism must be countered when they are happening. It does not mean that just because you end this staticism, no other staticism will ever happen. Yes, you must consider, you must keep in mind that you will you will have to destroy today's staticism, but that will in fact create some other staticism, or some other staticism will happen on its own as well. You can't that's not in your control. What's in your control is only today's staticism, but it has to be treated as a looked upon as a staticism, not just a random thing called casteism. True, I hate taxes, but we also need to know what happens with our taxes, and the people who handle our taxes must be held responsible. Yeah, it will never happen because they have so much power. So, Chanakya ho gaya. And secondly, to supply the state or commonwealth with a revenue sufficient for the public services. End quote. Now, Amartya Sen is saying he defended such public services as free education and poverty relief, while demanding greater freedom for the indigent who receives support than the rather punitive poor laws of his day permitted. This is where this is why I have some extra respect for Amartya Sen after reading this introduction. Okay, now listen to this, how fair he is being, even though he's probably not on the same page with Adam Smith here. He's saying on the first half of this sentence, it seems like he's again doing a sort of a developmental economics apologia for Adam Smith, or a rebranding. So he says he defended such public services as free education and poverty relief. Okay, but even commies want these things. In the very second half of that sentence, he says Adam Smith also demanded greater freedom for the indigent, for the poor person who receives support, than the rather punitive poor laws of his day permitted. Okay, now here Amartya Sen, knowingly or unknowingly, is pointing out that the poor person who becomes dependent on the state or gets help from the state ends up having absolutely no freedom, which we know today all around you. But Adam Smith was pointing out, and we are glad that Amartya Sen is harping on that as well, that Adam Smith was also prioritizing that it's more important, if not as important, that he also gets a lot of freedom. Just because you give him state support does not mean that he lacks all freedom, or he has to let go of all his freedom. It does not mean that he is dependent on your local party dadas and party office and your councillor's office for all the state support and stuff. That should not happen. What Amartya Sen does even more fairly here is that he points out that the so-called poor laws of his day actually did not give too much freedom to the poor, but Adam Smith was calling for it. Bangaputra is saying, but Adam Smith was in an industrializing Britain's environment for those times. You write without the typo 1 second, Bangaputra. M. Shastri is saying, but this intro to Adam Smith's book is a classic Soviet movie. It is. The socialists at NAC definitely thought they could drive away the curse of capitalism from the minds of the Indians. Absolutely, yes. Okay, so Bangaputra is saying, but Adam Smith was in an industrializing Britain's environment for those times, you could say developing. See, everyone is developing at every moment. No, we are always going on developing in some degree or the other. So Britain was not going to be called developing even back then because they were the most developed. So even today we are also developing, India is also developing, I mean USA is also developing, China is also developing. But जो सबसे डेवलप हो चुका है उसका डेवलपिंग टैग नहीं लगेगा, उसको डेवलप्ड का वो ताज उसके सर पे बैठेगा. Okay. Beyond his attention to beyond Adam Smith's attention to the components and responsibilities of a well-functioning market system, such as a role of accountability and trust, जो कि मेरे ख्याल से सोशलिस्ट इवन थोड़ा सा लेफ्ट लीनिंग कंट्रीज में सरकार का कुछ रहता ही नहीं है. He was deeply concerned about the inequality and poverty that might remain in an otherwise successful market economy. Even in dealing with regulations that restrain the markets, Adam Smith additionally acknowledged the importance of interventions on behalf of the poor and the underdogs of society. Fair enough. This sentence, though commies will lap it up, but I will say that I am also not in really disagreement as a libertarian with this, because I am saying interventions on behalf of the poor and the underdog means let the poor and the underdog become rich and less dependent on the state. At one stage, he gives. So I think again here, Amartya Sen is trying to do a bit of rebranding of Adam Smith. So it's a whirlwind of emotions and whirlpool of emotions. Okay, it all goes like this: suddenly rebranding, suddenly fairness, rebranding, fairness, or maybe this is just who Amartya Sen is. He's just a nuanced, layered guy, maybe. Bangaputra is saying neoliberal economics like stimulus checks and some form of social welfare stuff. Inflation. At one stage, he gives the formula of disarming simplicity. Okay. Adam Smith says, quote, when the regulation, therefore, is in favor of the workman, it is always just and equitable. But it is sometimes otherwise, otherwise in this case means not so. But it is sometimes not so when in favor of the masters. Pura the commie argument de diya hai. I'll have to see what the context is or how he expounds upon it. सिर्फ एक sentence सुन के तो अब एडम स्मिथ को मतलब CPM के ऑफिस में टंगवा देना नहीं है. Smith was both a proponent of a plural institutional structure. A plural institutional structure बहुत जरूरी है, and I think this is where Amartya Sen, like many atheist commie Hindus, brings out his inherent Hinduness without knowing about it unconsciously. Amartya Sen goes on talking about plurality all the time. In that book I read, Identity and Violence in Bengali, here you will get to hear it more. So, and now he is now bringing that out from even Adam Smith's writings. Smith was both a proponent of a plural institutional structure and a champion of social values that transcend the profit motive in principle as well as in actual reach. M. Shastri is saying, remember 2 months, Amartya Sen is fairly only fair with Western intellectual thoughts because it gets access to the fancy parties. Amartya Sen is only fair with Western intellectual thoughts. With intellectual thought, it's pure contempt. It's not so much as in Indian intellectual thought, he more has contempt when it comes to the Indian context, because Amartya Sen and people like him are the same people who will go and say that Hinduism teaches non-violence. Hinduism is such a great religion, it's being misappropriated by Hindutva. So he's not against Hinduism per se, at least not in rhetoric, right? So which is why you reminded me of a great thing. I plan to do I was not going to do any live reactions, right? Many people were recommending many videos. I don't want to get to live reactions anymore, but I do plan to do a live reaction of one particular video from a few days back in that guy's channel. Okay, who's that Hindi journalist? अरे वो कौन जात हो पूछता रहता है, Ravish Kumar. Yeah. So on Ravish Kumar's channel, he went to a professor's personal library. Okay, so I like the thumbnail. I thought let's check out what books are there. So I thought I'll discuss it on my live stream only. I thought I'll discuss it in my live stream even without knowing what the content of the live stream is. Okay, or I think I decided when he was pointing out, that professor was suddenly pointed out on Ravish Kumar's face that that famous book by that famous historian with the weird surname, I keep forgetting, who wrote that The Wonder That Was India. Okay, Google it and let me know what's the name. So The Wonder That Was India, the professor is saying, why did he end the book right before the Mughals come in? Okay, so he was obviously saying that India was a wonder only up till the Mughals came, right? So I thought, what is Ravish Kumar going to respond to this now? Did he just get blue pilled? Is he a Hindutva? He's going to become a Hindutvadi now. And then Ravish Kumar, the genius, experienced journalist that he is, he brings out a counter argument and says that, but don't you think Hindutvadis are misappropriating kind of the idea of Hinduism, etc.? And then I see the professor immediately flips and says that yes, I am the way he says that, it signals you that he does not want to be associated with the Hindutva crowd, and says that Hindutva is the most colonized idea of all time. Because Ravish Kumar said that Hindutvadis are also saying that India used to be a wonder up until the Mughals came. Oh, another point. The professor said that the Europeans misinterpreted or misunderstood Indian society only because they thought of India as another Ireland, and they had contempt for Ireland, so they extrapolated that hatred on Indians in the same way. And then Ravish Kumar brings out his trump card and says that, so Are then the Hindutva crowd correct in saying these things? And then the professor reacts and says, no, 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 no. Hindutva is a completely colonized mind of a project. It's absolutely Protestantism. It's a rebranding of Protestantism and stuff. Okay. And then I decided I have to do a live stream on this bullshit. But more importantly, what M. Shastri pointed out here about Amartya Sen's hypocrisy when it comes to discussing one, he says X is great in England, X is bad in India. Okay, stuff like that. And forever, there's no motion. Whatever was bad in X, whatever was bad in England 15 years back, 20 years back, 30 years back when he started writing these things, it's bad even today. So, which is why Sanjeev Sanyal, when critiquing people like Amartya Sen without naming them, he says that these people think that हम गरीब है और माँ कसम हमेशा गरीब रहेंगे. So at that point, I thought of an analogy that imagine you are a chess player, your entire family is a chess player, you live in a nice house, and all of a sudden your house is taken over by carom players, and the carom players mysteriously hire one or two chess players to let them play chess. And you, who is not on the payroll of those carom players, either have to give up playing chess, or have to play chess with a lot of risk, or have to imbibe some characteristics of playing carom maybe in chess, okay, some way or the other. But because you do that for your survival, the fucking chess player who's on the payroll of the carom players tells you that that's not real chess. So what I'm saying is that I don't have a problem when Ashish Nandi says that Savarkar had a colonized mind and Hindutva is a European nationalistic concept. तो भोसरी के हम यूरोपियन नेशन स्टेट मॉडल में है, रिलीजियन और हिंदू सिविलाइजेशन का कंपैरिजन हो रहा है, the rules of the game have been set by you. तो इसमें हम रूल फॉलो करके वो गेम में ना सीखे कि ये गेम के बाहर ही हम रहे और तुम देश चलाते रहो. What the fuck do you want? So I think it's absolutely fair, even if Hindutva is a colonized project. M. Shastri is saying, when I was a kid, the older generations, same generation as Amartya Sen, always treated anything Indian with extreme contempt. Yes, yes. They are and were more colonizing than the British. Yes. Remember, we had a popular TV series called Sarabhai versus Sarabhai for a reason. Oh my God, yes. ऐसे लोग प्रोफेसर कैसे बन जाते हैं? सिलेबस हमने बताया ना उस दिन सोशियोलॉजी का. तो anyway, so Adam Smith was both a proponent of a plural institutional structure and a champion of social values that transcend the profit motive in principle as well as in actual reach. Okay. Now another subchapter, another topic begins: ethics, virtue, and consequences. I turn now from the relevance of moral sentiments, the book, to Smith's economic analysis, to its salience to ethics and political philosophy. Okay. Relevance of moral sentiments to Smith's economic analysis, जो कि हम अब तक discuss कर रहे थे. Now we'll get to the salience of moral sentiments to ethics and political philosophy. Adam Smith had an abiding interest in how things actually work out, and in recommending actions and rules to be chosen, he paid particular attention to the kind of world they would yield. But he also noted the importance of the character of the actions themselves and the motivation behind undertaking them. Not just what happens at the very end in identifying what can be seen as virtuous. In fact, a broad ethical evaluation of the kind Smith outlined can take note of the virtues, both of what actually happened and of the actions taken to produce such outcomes, going well beyond the simple-minded quote-unquote consequentialist framework made popular by theories of practical reason, such as utilitarian ethics, which insists on attaching direct significance only to utilities that ultimately result. We can take note of the actions undertaken. And of the ethical quality of the decision making that led to those actions, since they are indeed part of what quote-unquote really happened, without conforming our scrutiny only to what occurred at the culmination. Nice. So means don't really justify the end, I guess. Adam Smith's simultaneous interest in virtues and obligations and in what actually happens in the world are comprehensively integrated. Interesting. Smith makes an important distinction in his conception of virtue between praise and praiseworthiness. This is a brilliant part. I liked it. And focuses on the latter, the praiseworthiness, as the legitimate basis for action. Very, very nuanced. Praise and praiseworthiness are different. It is, of course, the case that a praiseworthy action would also tend to generate actual praise, and this may well be pleasing to the person praised. What Adam Smith argues for, however, is to concentrate not on what would bring praise, despite the happiness it may bring to the person involved, but on whether the action is praiseworthy. Wonder what it means. We'll have to get to the book, of course. Therefore, introductions are not really sufficient. They're necessary but not sufficient. In discussing, quote unquote, the different accounts which have been given of the nature of virtue, Smith distinguishes among the ways of seeing virtue. First, in times of propriety, okay, meaning how proper it is. Second, as fulfilling one's private interest and happiness. And third, as aiming at the happiness of others. These distinct views, he argues, can be integrated, and he discusses how reasoning can link them together, allowing a kind of balance that virtue and praiseworthiness would demand. Adam Smith is saying, quote, as our most solid judgments, therefore, with regard to right and wrong, are regulated by maxims and ideas derived from an induction of reason, virtue may very properly be said to consist in a conformity to reason, and so far this faculty may be considered as the source and principle of approbation and disapprobation, meaning approval and disapproval, and or criticism or approval, appreciation, etc. Okay, so this is a very important point, but if you didn't understand it now, it's not a problem. We'll get to this again in a next subchapter as well, that virtue may very properly be said to consist in a conformity to reason, and so far this faculty may be considered as the source and principle of approbation and disapprobation. Now, I don't know if you all are noticing this or not, but I have observed this, maybe I'm wrong, that whatever Western scholars I have read, all the famous Enlightenment era stuff, or even whatever is happening in the West today, today's thinkers, today's philosophers, economic thinkers, etc., or let's say people like Nietzsche, Adam Smith, everyone, all these seem to have been said in Hinduism as well. Okay, some time or the other. So that basically is giving me the understanding that I think this Christian civilization, this West, is just a few thousand years behind the Hindu civilization, and their scholars, their philosophers, their thinkers, their even theologians are doing and let's say correcting, reforming themselves in the not in the same ways, but those same incidents, or at least those same phenomena, I think have also happened in Hinduism, but 1500 2000 years before all these happened in the West, or all these things are happening in the West. And I think the acceleration has gone on a bit because of today's technology, and therefore USA's downfall has also come much quicker. But therefore I think they just tried to reinvent the wheel by destroying the previous cultures, and they have they then came up with the Christian religion, and then after that came the Western civilization because of Enlightenment. Now which is why I think Hinduism versus Christianity is not a legitimate comparison. I think Hindu civilization, all our history, and versus Western civilization is a more legitimate comparison, because as we now know that all our rishis were not just priests, which we grew up believing, especially if you are not from a religious background or religious family, especially growing up in a ICC board English medium school. All our lives we knew that rishi, muni, all these things mean just doing yagya. So now we know that people were discussing mathematics, philosophy, how to lead a life, how to think about life. Okay, all sorts of things that are going on in the West even today. They're not maybe coming to the same conclusions all the time, although they often are even. But the problems and questions they were dealing with 1600s, 1700s onwards, even today, all of those same things have happened. All of those questions have been pursued even in India thousands of years before that. Not thousands, maybe at least 1500 years before that. Therefore, it's just a reinvention of the wheel, and same things are going to happen. M. Shastri is saying the West is reaching the limits of their ideas and ideals. Liberalism has miserably failed. That's why we are seeing a rise of right in EU and North America. Yeah. Look at this in the terms of maybe Buddhism, Sanatan Dharma, etc. Vedic Dharma. Nina is saying, Dada, your thoughts on latest ANI podcast and क्या प्रश्न पूछ लिए भाई. What an unfortunate thing. Now, let's not kid ourselves. ANI is doing these things absolutely. I think my hunch is that I'm 70-80% sure is being asked of Smita Prakash by someone in the government that talk to these people. बहुत हो गया हिंदुत्व. Now let's get back some Dalit votes. And I absolutely agree with Jesai Deepak's prediction as well, in theory. Now, if it doesn't happen in, if what the center is trying to do with people like these on the ANI podcast, if they do get back Dalit votes, that might just be better than having Congress come to power because of Dalit votes. Who knows? Not sure. Let's see. But definitely annoying. Abhay saying only social awareness does not work. The state will have to do its bit to reform the systems and institutions. Yeah. And if they don't do that, but keep playing these dangerous games with the NI podcast guests, then we could come to at some point in the future where we would think that what's even the point of any political party coming to power? What's even the point of these people winning? Okay, what's even the point of this idea of Hindutva if it's not going to benefit the idea of Hindu civilization at all? Flyovers are not the end all be all of Hindu civilization. Brahmacharya Ashram is saying even it was discussed in Greek philosophy, copy and then rebrand yeah, then started debating over that. Yes. So political philosophy and justice, next subchapter. Okay, I turn now from moral to political philosophy, though the two are closely related, particularly so in Smith's analysis. I will concentrate first on the kind of theory of justice that we can find in the moral sentiments, this book, and examine it in light of mainstream theories of justice as they have emerged in recent centuries. There are two basic and divergent lines of reasoning about justice among leading philosophers associated with the radical thought of the Enlightenment. There is first the contractarian, meaning people who believe in the social contract theory. Contractarian approach led by the work of Thomas Hobbes in the 17th century and followed in different ways by such outstanding thinkers as John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and Immanuel Kant. Now, those of you who don't come from any humanities background, the social contract theory means that there will be institutions out of which you and I will have a written or unwritten. I think I'm giving you a rough top level explanation of this, that you and I have some sort of an understanding that you and I are both part of a society, and therefore we must cooperate, something like that. But we will get to more details later on. And by the way, guys, Jean-Jacques Rousseau was a great composer as well. He in fact had a debate and war of words and I think letters as well with another composer called Rameau, okay, Rameau. And Rousseau said, I will be I think Rousseau was planning to be the replacement of Rameau as a composer. And Rameau was a proponent of French music only. Rousseau had interest in Italian music as well. And Mozart, so Rousseau even composed a complete opera. And Mozart wrote an opera dedicated to Rousseau. So specialization is for insects. Abhay is saying, Dada, in Hindu Rashtra Darshan, Savarkar talks about how smaller Hindu kingdoms are skeptical of the intentions of the larger Hindu empire in leading the Hindu civilization, similar with castes. Yeah, my favorite is Tchaikovsky, Beethoven. I like Tchaikovsky more. I am from engineering background, but to counter my Marxist humanity background friends, I needed to learn their position in summary. Yes. In its rudimentary version, this approach, this social contract theory approach, concentrates on identifying quote-unquote just meaning fair, just institutional arrangements for a society. But remember this phrase. This is going to be the most important concept for this subchapter, okay? This is where it gets juicy. Identifying just institutional arrangements for a society, which would yield a corresponding hypothetical contract. But institutional arrangement meaning inherently a sort of a top-down approach. The demands of justice are then seen in terms of those institutional requirements, with the expectation that people would behave appropriately to make those institutions entirely effective. And we know this doesn't happen. At least as a Hindu, you inherently know. If you know any Indian or Hindu history, you know this fucking never happens. This can't happen in humanity in general. Maybe it happens in completely Abrahamite society with no reform, no enlightenment phase, like UAE. So they either have to become completely atheists or have to become completely blindly religious. Now, if the king says, "Chalo liberal bante hai," all of us say, "Ha ha, liberal." The king gets assassinated, you will fall like a pack of cards and become Afghanistan in 1 week. So, other than those crazy societies, I think in general, institutions can't. People can't be expected to behave appropriately to make those institutions entirely effective and stuff. The approach has two distinct features, this social contract theory approach. First, it concentrates its attention on what it identifies as perfect justice, rather than on relative comparisons of justice and injustice. This is where Amartya Sen impressed me a lot, again, because he is kind of pointing out what Thomas Sowell pointed out with his coinage of the term called cosmic justice. That, let's say you say Hinduism is a regressive bad religion, okay, comparison to fucking who, okay, uh, maybe yes, aspects of Hinduism have been or are regressive, but Hinduism as a general is a regressive religion that has to be countered with in comparison to whom, in comparison to a perfect cosmic justice utopia in a hypothetical perfect world. Yes, there might be that imaginary hypothetical perfect religion which creates a society where no one commits any crime, okay, but, or let's say an NRI sitting in USA says US is a racist country, capitalism is bad, etc. Yeah, fucking in comparison to whom? Come back to India then. So here Amartya Sen is kind of harping on that as well. uh, the problem with this approach is that it identifies a perfect justice instead of relative comparisons of justice and injustice. Beautiful. It tries this approach tries to identify social characteristics that cannot be transcended in terms of justice, and is aimed at identifying the nature of the just, rather rather than at finding some criteria that would allow us to decide whether an alternative is less unjust. What a brilliant line. Because that's, I guess, realistically speaking, that's all we need, or that's the only main thing we need. We need to look at Hinduism as the least problematic religion, at least. USA is the least racist country. तो कहाँ होगा? तुम वहां पे बैठ के तुम कॉस्मिक जस्टिस का अपेक्षा करते रहो. तो how about less unjust concepts and not the just? Secondly, here I have underlined, and here Amartya Sen kind of will come out as anti-reservation. Let me just have a sip of green tea and check some comments. Lavesh is saying, all of them want to rally behind stupid leaders with extremist views. What do you think about Nietzsche support Manusmriti being nihilist? Trads in 2020 used to advertise about that in Instagram a lot. What is your thought on Nietzsche on that? Yeah, it's interesting. He I guess liked it. I mean, I have no I'm not for or against any of these things. I find it very interesting, that's all. That he said good things about the about Manusmriti. Most of them was connecting him to historical Brahmin figures who have been alleged to have been casteist, but the narrative is Hinduism is equal to Brahmin casteism, and Savarkar was pro-Hindu. And the narrative that he wanted to establish Brahmin Baniya Raj. Now, one problem is that I have not yet seen the exact quote where or which book where he said that Nietzsche said good things about Manusmriti. Okay, if anyone can find it on Google, mention it. Okay, where he said it, in which book, which page, and stuff. It might be a made-up story. Voltaire also believed Upanishad is a great gift to humanity. Now, Upanishad though is believed to be great to humanity even by Brahmo Samajis, so we have our limitations there. One thing I don't get is why Savarkar isn't that much honored and respected by scheduled castes when he fought so much for them, because they don't know, obviously. Like I have told you guys many times, in the presidency, people are taught both Savarkar and Ambedkar. Savarkar's Hindutva is taught, Ambedkar's caste fights are taught. Ambedkar's views on Islam are not taught. Savarkar's views on caste are not taught. So it's a completely curated manifesto to create activists like that. Well, we'll get to that in the end of the discussion. Okay, that insane revolution that is happening in the world of sociology today. No, let's just talk about that a little. So there's a very I think it was created in the 70s or 80s, a very legit old journal for sociology called Theory and Society. So like all other journals today, its business was falling, its relevance was going down. So the people who are the owners, Springer Nature, they decided, let's have a revamp, let's do something fresh, let's do something new with this journal. How about shaking things up? So they hire a guy called John H. Turner and another famous sociologist called McCraffy. I can't exactly pronounce his name. And John H. Turner is known to be, I'll have to do a live stream on that as well. Thank you for reminding me indirectly. There's a great podcast that John H. Turner once went to on a very small podcast, bad graphics and stuff, 5,000 subscribers. So, I mean, worse graphics than me. So, bad audio quality and stuff, but you can listen to it. So, John H. Turner is one of those people, liberal, civil rights activist, was locked up in jail for protesting against the oppression of black people. But he is in favor of keeping sociology in the realm of value neutral research, where you research all aspects of society, you observe how things occur, and leave it at that. Now, the main problem he has with sociology today is not that it has become too prescriptive. He is saying that the only thing, the quote that I shared, the only thing that sociologists today care about is injustice. Everywhere, all fields of society and life, all they care about is injustice and how to end that injustice. So, if it becomes an activist discipline, you will have those manifestos, Savarkar's Hindutva and Ambedkar's caste. So, when John H. Turner gets hired, as a mark of protest, all the commies in the journal resign. And then in the editorial board today, they have hired Salvatore Babones as well. So let's see what good things happen there. M. Shastri saying even telephone weren't that accessible until the early 2000s. So Nehru et al. Had an easy time buying bad things done to Hindus, Hindu right. Yeah. Okay. Now listen to this quote by Amartya. Okay. I have to underline this. In searching for perfection, now he coins the term transcendental institutionalism. Okay. That institutional सर्वोपरि, सब कुछ के ऊपर है मेरा इंस्टीट्यूशन, उसको ठीक रखो, उसको बचा के रखो, इम्पैक्ट, रिजल्ट्स सब गया भाड़ में, इंस्टीट्यूशन. तो in searching for perfection, transcendental institutionalism concentrates primarily on getting the institutions right, and it is only indirectly concerned with the societies that would ultimately emerge out of that prioritization of institutions. Okay, this is where I think it can be applied to the idea of reservations. Think of reservation as an institution, or the, let's say, all the laws. Okay, SC/ST laws, but mainly so reservations, or any ministry or government body that handles reservations. Okay, think of them as the institution that's been discussed here. So, in searching for perfection, transcendental institutionalism concentrates primarily on getting the institutions right, and it is only indirectly concerned with the societies that would ultimately emerge. The nature of the society that would emerge from any given set of institutions must, of course, depend on many non-institutional factors. As we know, it is so, which is why reservation has not been able to solve the problem of caste-based bad behavior, such as actual behaviors of people. Okay, I have been saying, using the word caste-based bad behavior for long now, and I kind of came up with that term on my own. And today I find, at least day before yesterday, I found out that even Amartya Sen unknowingly is pointing out the same problem, that लोगों का behavior भोसरी के institution के वजह से mend नहीं हो रहा है, नहीं होता है, नहीं होगा. तो The nature of the society that would emerge from any given set of institutions must, of course, depend on many non-institutional factors such as actual behaviors of people and their social interactions. अब सोशल इंटरेक्शन में क्या आ जाता है? सोशल इंटरेक्शन में तुम्हारा मतलब ऑब्स्टेकल क्या है इस रिजर्वेशन कास्टिज्म सिचुएशन में? स्टेटस ग्रुप. सोशल इंटरेक्शंस आर बेस्ड ऑन स्टेटस ग्रुप्स एंड देयर हायरार्कीज. तो उसको सॉल्व बिना किए तुम इंस्टीट्यूशंस को लेके बैठे हो, because the social interactions between the people in different hierarchy status groups, okay, those interactions, they are the cause behind those behaviors, whether good or bad. And therefore, and when these non-institutional factors are not being taken into account, the institution of reservation fails and is useful. M. Shastri is saying, actually, this is a great criticism of Western thought and its obsession over institutionalism. Yes. And M. Shastri, the less educated Hindutvadis who hate Adam Smith will be happy to know that Adam Smith actually gives a better replacement and solution for this. Now, again, another Occidentalist could argue that why do we need to learn from Adam Smith? Because he is the one credible. और किसी का बात नहीं सुनेगा कोई academia में, media में, तो हम क्या करें? So anyway, and since he's at least saying the same things that we want, I don't even see a problem with quoting Adam Smith, but it is what it is. So anyway, now listen to another important line. The journey from institutions to social outcomes is handled by this approach with the assumption that people's behavior would be exactly what would be needed for the proper functioning of the chosen institutions, जो कि भोसले के नहीं होता है. And Amartya Sen knows this maybe because he's a true liberal, or maybe he is inherently Hindu because of his upper caste upbringing. Sen, he's a descendant of the Sena dynasty from Karnataka. He has grown up with proper cultural understanding of this civilization, knowingly or unknowingly at least. In contrast to the social contract approach, a number of other Enlightenment theorists took a variety of comparative approaches that were, and I am in favor of that because that leads you to not say Hinduism is a regressive religion, that were concerned primarily, those comparative approaches that were concerned primarily, and that comparative approach is how you can come up with ideas like status groups were there in Japan, USA, England, and India as well. Okay, that is the value of and benefit of comparative approaches. Variety of comparative approaches that were concerned primarily with removing identifiable injustices in the world, such as slavery or bureaucracy-induced poverty, or cruel and counterproductive penal codes, or rampant or the subjugation of women. Now, यहाँ पे भी अमर्त्य सेन अचानक फेयर बन जाते हैं, and he admits there is in fact something called bureaucracy-induced poverty. Not in the case of India. इंडिया के ब्यूरोक्रेट्स अलग अलग एलियन हैं जो कि बहुत बढ़िया काम कर रहे हैं. Boys played very well. Nina is saying he had a speech. Vivek had a speech where someone argued with him on abolishing entire departments and stuff. He mentioned similar points. Yeah, of course. So bureaucracy-induced poverty, bhai log. The focus of this approach, this comparative approach, the focus is on what actually happens to the lives of the people. और एक्चुअली क्या हो रहा है? ओबीसी जाके दलित को ऑप्रेस कर रहा है, गाली पड़ रही है ब्राह्मण्स को, और मेरे ख्याल से वो एक्चुअली ब्राह्मण है भी नहीं मगर उसका सरनेम ब्राह्मण है, उसलिए भी गाली पड़ रही है, और फिर रिजर्वेशन भी चल रहा है और प्रॉब्लम जा भी नहीं रहा है. तो the focus is on what actually happens to the lives of people, and the judgments are comparative. For example, how the world would improve if slavery were abolished. Imagine this judgment. Imagine arguing in favor of eliminating statusism and how the world or how India would improve because of this statusism going away. Whereas the commie argument is, this is evil, oppressive, comes from Hinduism, kick out Hinduism, and if possible, kick out this system somehow. Just kick it out because it's bad. It leads to bad behaviors. And if possible, along with it, kick out Hinduism as well. Whereas the comparative approach would say, see, this is a status problem, and see if this doesn't happen, if these bad behaviors based on staticism doesn't happen, what would be the benefits of India? More importantly, what would be the benefits of Hindutva, Hinduism, India, the Hindu unity cause? Argue on those lines. Actually, without staticism, everyone would become a monk. Uh, no, because M. Shastri, I'm calling for the end of staticism, and i.e. status-based bad behavior. Okay, only thus the use of ism. Otherwise, I'm saying status is inevitable. Therefore, you could say, of course, staticism is also inevitable. But the staticism, the magnitude of staticism that we have in the name of casteism or caste today, that is unacceptable. It's detrimental to India and to Hinduism, Hindutva unity, everything, right? So we'll have to keep up the fight anyway. Jains actually have a good solution to staticism. It is definitely in freedom of the soul. The jiva can decide to reincarnate or decide to seek moksha. I see. It comes from the mindset that Indian society deserves to be controlled by bureaucracy because the society does not. Yeah, possibly. India needs a Vivek Ramaswamy. अरे विवेक रामास्वामी के बारे में अच्छा बोलता हूं तभी लोग बोलने शुरू कर देते हैं कि why do we need to care what's going on in America? ये अजीब एंटी इंटेलेक्चुअलिज्म से तो छुटकारा मिलना जरूरी है. Okay, तो comparative realizations. Listen to this term. The approach of comparative realizations, as we may call it, was pursued in different ways, not only by Smith, who was its most powerful proponent, but also by the Marquis de Condorcet, who was the founder of the mathematical discipline of social choice theory, who was greatly influenced by Smith. And it has also this comparative realization has also inspired Jeremy Bentham, Mary Wollstonecraft, Karl Marx, and John Stuart Mill, among others, all of whom were admirers of Adam Smith and were clearly influenced by him to varying extents. तब यहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम है कि भाई तो कार्ल मार्क्स वाज इन फेवर ऑफ कंपैरेटिव एनालिसिस, कंपैरेटिव अप्रोच. एडम स्मिथ से इन्फ्लुएंस भी हुआ है, फिर जाके ये सब सॉल्यूशंस कैसे? सो people come to wrong conclusions. People just make mistakes anyway, regardless of what they're training. रावण भी एक्सपर्ट था वेदों में एंड शिव भक्त था, फिर भी चुतिया रावण ही बना. तो अब क्या करे? तो Karl Marx decided, I guess, that okay, compare, and now everyone is oppressed. Let's solve that problem now. M. Shastri is saying status seeking is not a bad thing. Caste-based status seeking is a horrible thing. Fair enough. Right. मीरा त्रिपाठी सिंह तो पूरी दुनिया को एक ढांचे में क्यों डाल दिया मार्क्स अंकल? या नाउ पूरी दुनिया को एक ढांचे में डालना is actually done by all the people who will have seemingly good things to say about India as well. Okay, Adam Smith, Max Weber, all these people are saying that even Emil Durkheim, his work with religion, his work with suicide, everywhere, all these people are saying that in general, if you boil down far enough, if you filter down far enough, on a basic level, humans everywhere are generally same. After that, the layers of distinctions come because of their surroundings. First and foremost, obviously, because of nature. Like even Rajiv Malhotra admits that Islam is the way Islam behaves is because it is a religion of the desert, right? Okay, the desperation, the craving for acquiring some assets, resources, saving them at any cost, following a completely absolutist, violent mindset in order to protect whatever resources you gathered. Of course, you have to be that way when you're living in a fucking desert. And therefore, Hinduism was born in India. And it is because of India's nature and climate. And more importantly, it's not so that Hindu philosophers do not understand that the credit for this actually goes to India's nature. They realize this, which is why they say this land is so sacred that iske karn karn mein Shivji baithte hain. Realize the genius of this civilization. Okay. To varying extents. So, and were clearly influenced by him to varying extents. As it happens, it is the first tradition that of transcendental institutionalism, उसके बारे में बात हो रहा है, on which today's mainstream political philosophy largely draws in its exploration of the theory of justice, which is why we have reservations, and which is why apparently some audience member had told me that Kushal Mehra also supports reservation based on Rawls's theory of justice. I think his book is called A Theory of Justice. The most powerful and momentous exposition of this approach to justice can be found in the work of the leading political philosopher of our time, John Rawls. Indeed, Rawls's quote-unquote principles of justice in his book A Theory of Justice are defined entirely for selecting perfectly just institutions. This entire tradition is very non-Smithian. Smith's focus on actual realizations, okay? Adam Smith's focus on actual realizations, real life results, which I think has happened because of his mathematics background. Although, to be fair, I don't know what Rawls's background is. Focuses on actual realization, not just on institutions and arrangements, and on comparisons, rather than on transcendence, sarvopadiness. The primary concentration in the Smithian approach is on questions such as how would justice be advanced, rather than on, as in the Rawlsian theory, what would be perfectly just institutions. And therefore, you see, Amartya has pretty harshly criticized the Rawlsian idea of justice and indirectly the reservations. I'm going to meet Kushal Mehra next week. Oh, nice. M. Shastri is saying, actually, there's a simpler explanation for supporting reservations. Pune Pact. We have to abide by it until we eliminate caste-based bad behavior. Oh, yeah, tab. The weather is really bearable and not extra. Actually, India can manage a much larger population than anywhere else in the world in the smallest area. That's why all the intelligence happens to converge there. True. Now, another brilliant topic, guys. I love this topic, this subchapter. Impartiality and the impartial spectator. And why I'm excited about this is because here we'll get to do a brilliant thought experiment in which you all will have to participate. Okay, get ready. An important contrast between the Smithian approach and brilliantly, most interestingly, this conversation that we are about to embark on, okay, actually has debates among the commies as well, and more so in the Hindutva space as well, because as you all know, there are more juicy, fruitful, constructive, intelligent debates going on today between Hindutvadis or on the non-left than inside the left. So just, I guess, get ready. An important contrast between the Smithian approach and the approach based on social contracts lies in the form in which impartiality needed for fairness and justice is invoked. Okay, how do we get to impartiality? Smith's thought experiment on impartiality invokes the device of the quote-unquote impartial spectator who can come as readily from outside of a community as from within it, according to Adam Smith. This differs substantially from the admissible points of view that a social contract approach concentrates on, to wit, the views of the people within a polity in which the contract is being made. So, interestingly, यहाँ पे जो ये के फालतू के एनलाइटनमेंट एरा, रेनेसां एरा वाले और commies who apparently draw from these scholars, they are the ones who are going on drawing upon Western scholars to criticize India and Hinduism. Whereas Adam Smith is saying, no, it can come from both the insider or the outsider. Okay. And then some Hindutvadis are saying, no, what's the point of listening to Adam Smith or Max Weber and think about India or Hindutva? Okay. These are the three kinds of views, but on two different camps. In Rawls's discussion of what he calls a reflective equilibrium, okay, distant perspectives can be invoked, but in his structured theory of justice as fairness, the relevant points of view are confined entirely to those of the people in the society in which the so-called original position is being contemplated. तो रॉल्स के चिंताओं के बेसिस पे रिजर्वेशन बना दिया, और रॉल्स ने बोला कि इसके कमेंटेटर्स तो सिर्फ इनसाइड द सोसाइटी से आएंगे, तब भोसरी के गए आउटसाइड द सोसाइटी ढूंढने, क्रिटिक्स ऑफ इंडियन हिंदुइज्म ढूंढने. तो you see, in the end, left not ground level, not 20-year-old leftist kids maybe, not the CPIM bhalo kakus I discussed, not them maybe, but the true ideologues of the left in the end don't really have any morals. They are genuinely evil people who have read these things, and then they have uh, curated the ideology just to suit their end goals, or the end goal of destroying India, Hinduism, etc. And therefore, you see, pointing out hypocrisies of the left today is being done even by people in class 12 with just an Instagram, right? You point out that, yeah, you said X is good here, you said X is bad here when it comes to Hinduism. But even on such deep, let's say, intellectual academic levels, even fucking there, these guys have been so hypocritical. रॉल्स का रिजर्वेशन लेंगे, रॉल्स जब बोलेगा इनसाइड द सोसाइटी से क्रिटिसिज्म लो या फिर कमेंट्री सुनो, तब भोसरी के उसको इग्नोर कर रहा है, तब अचानक वो लोग एडम स्मिथ को सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं. नीना सिंह काइंड ऑफ, अच्छा, okay. Now let's go further. You all will see an indirect criticism of the NRI commie academics as well, okay, by Amartya unknowingly, okay. Check this out. So in Rawls's structured theory of justice as fairness, the relevant points of view are confined entirely to those of the people in the society in which the so-called original position is being contemplated. In this sense, the impartiality that at least John Rawls and the social contract approach explores is quote-unquote closed. That is, it is confined to the members of the contracting parties or their quote-unquote representatives. And this is where I think the commies, maybe with their even academic honesty, have actually gotten around this problem, that they have become the fucking representatives of this society, and therefore a true Rawlsian non-Indian or a white academic can in fact criticize, and the Rawlsian inside India can actually listen to his criticism without any dishonesty, because that white guy can say, I'm listening to the criticism of your country from Guha, Arundhati Roy, Amartya Sen, hum ka kare? And therefore Ben Shapiro's criticism also falls in this category. He is reading Ramchandra Guha to criticize India. Anyway, representatives. In contrast, Adam Smith's impartial spectator takes us toward an open impartiality. Now let's see how Adam Smith's idea works as a counter to this. मीरा त्रिपाठी सिंह जैसे जैसे आगे बढ़ी वैसे ही गलती से कुछ सही बातें निकल गई. Okay, to be sure, both Smith and Immanuel Kant had much to say about the importance of impartiality. Even though Adam Smith's exposition of this idea is less remembered among contemporary moral and political philosophers, there are substantial points of similarity between the Kantian and Smithian approaches, but people have just forgotten that Kant was actually drawing from Adam Smith only. In fact, Adam Smith's analysis of this quote-unquote impartial spectator has some claim to being the pioneering idea in the enterprise of interpreting impartiality and formulating the demands of fairness that so engaged the world of the European Enlightenment. Adam Smith's ideas were influential not only among Enlightenment thinkers such as Condorcet. Kant too was familiar with the theory of moral sentiments, as we know from his correspondence with Marcus Hertz in 1771, which preceded by a considerable number of years Kant's own classic works called Groundwork in 1785 and Critique of Practical Reason 1788. And it seems quite likely that Kant was influenced by Adam Smith, even though, alas, Hertz referred to the proud Scotsman Adam Smith as the Englishman Smith, maybe by mistake. I'm interested in knowing what is Rohan Dante and Nina talking about. Who is this he? DX is saying, is it possible for India to ever get rid of reservation? Does the key to removal of reservation lie in educating the masses and hence and hence a shift in educational policy. No, bro or sis, this educating the masses and creating awareness in society, this horseshit has been peddled by the social worker mentality commies in our society when we were growing up. Okay, इनको सोशल वर्क करके या अवेयरनेस फैलाने के चक्कर में इतना पैसा मिलता है कि सिर्फ प्लेकार्ड लेके घूमो, सेमिनार करो, वर्कशॉप करो स्कूल में जाके। जब जब तुम स्कूल में बैठे हो और तुम सोचो कब भोसड़ी के ये वर्कशॉप सेमिनार खत्म होगा और मैं बाहर जाके फुटबॉल खेलूंगा, तो in those situations these awareness things don't work 99% of the cases. You may have some thought implanted a little bit that yeah, maybe throwing plastic packets here and there is not a good thing. Okay, like I first came to know that you're supposed to wear a helmet while riding a bike, although it's actually basically against the argument I was talking. It's actually against the social worker idea. It's actually in favor of the idea I'm going to make, that first of all, for the first time in roadies, okay, the MTV program, I heard and I came to know that, oh, you are supposed to wear helmets, because Raghu used to harp upon it very much. Remember, maybe the social workers, maybe the awareness creators had asked him. Fair enough, but it has to happen through people like Raghu's mind, but in another way as well. I'll get to that as well. But Raghu used to basically criticize, use offensive words, cuss words, etc. for people who would say that I proudly don't wear a helmet ever. Okay, that's the first time I came to know that, oh, you're supposed to wear a helmet. Before that, I didn't even know. Back when I was an absolute kid. So, my suggestion is that at the moment, seeking reservation, calling yourself low caste, etc., all these are incentivized in the institutions and in a way, therefore, economically. Remove the institutions or indirectly incentivize the opposite, everyone will immediately start calling themselves Brahmin. Okay, whatever you incentivize, usually those things happen. Remove the incentives. Now you can ask therefore that in order to remove the incentive of seeking reservation, we will have to remove the reservation itself. How do we go about that? That's a longer discussion. I have some thoughts about it. All those ideas are so much blockaded by everyone and even people on the right that it becomes a problem. And the only people who are the 99% of people on the right who are against reservations or who have the balls to say they are against reservations are insane people who say casteism never happens or never happened, or why are Brahmins getting all the blame even though casteism is not happening at all. That's a problem. You'll have to acknowledge all the bad behavior and still say that no, reservation is a bad thing. And think of reservation with that comparative approach as well, that how would the world benefit without this reservation, and how would also the world or India benefit without this staticism. Dada, Ankit Shah was totally libertarian about education, that government should even be involved in education. I'm in favor of privatizing entire education sector, all schools, colleges, etc. Probably. We don't have right-wing shows like those, to be honest. Most social workers in India don't contribute to positive development in India. They are there for socialisms or conversions. Big bindi class. Zaumya is saying sociology books in English, please. Now, do you want to learn of sociology as an academic? I mean, in the way that you pursue academics. Then there is this one book. These are like the school level. I mean, of course, great for beginner level stuff like Fundamentals of Sociology by P. Gisbert. But otherwise, you'll have to read different kinds of papers written by these famous scholars, or their books, or papers on the primary sources by these scholars, etc. Then you'll get the more holistic view. Otherwise, you'll get to know just definitions and who said what, those kinds of things. Okay, let's continue now. Another great section is coming up. Okay. Now here, I have written something. I have mentioned that Amartya Sen W. Okay, so it's an absolute win. Amartya Sen does an absolute win here because he says such great things in this page. Okay, wait for it. It is the differences between Adam Smith on one side and Kant and Rawls on the other that are particularly important for the present discussion. To Smith, the internal discussion among the participants in the, okay, to Adam Smith, the internal discussion among the participants in the Rawlsian original position would appear to be inadequately scrutinized. Okay, which is the, of course, the main problem with listening to people only on your side or only in your group, inside your group, that it's under scrutinized. How do you know you are right? How do you know a fresh outsider's third person perspective would not help you? How are you sure about that? So since we have to look beyond the points of view of others in the same society engaged in making the social contract, as Adam Smith has argued, quote, we can never survey our own sentiments and motives. We can never form any judgment concerning them unless we remove ourselves, as it were, from our own natural station and endeavor to view them as at a certain distance from us. But we can do this in no other way than by endeavoring to view them with the eyes of other people, or as other people are likely to view them. And this, in fact, is a great scathing criticism, unknowingly, of today's wokeism, isn't it? The autoethnography bullshit, the lived experience idea. Okay, I don't believe in lived experiences. Okay, I use the phrase once in a while as a conversation device because it's gained some popularity, some purchase. Some people understand what I mean specifically, but I wouldn't base an entire stance or position, economic or social, on focusing or prioritizing just the lived experience idea, because all experience is a lived experience. How do you even have an experience by being dead? Okay, any experience is a lived experience, so you could get away with saying just experience, but this word play, this word jugglery has been created by commies to go beyond societal realities and say that yes, I don't care about that. I don't care that USA is the richest country. I don't care that I am an NRI who lives in USA because it's better than India for me. But I will now or go around saying my personal anecdote, trivial experiences in the country, and therefore try to portray the entire society in that light. And you all know that I think Stalin had said this as well in some way, that imagine you hear a statistic that today 10,000 people died or 1,000 people died in a war. You think, yeah, this is war, ab ka kare? But you see the picture of one child lying dead on a sea beach. That strikes your heart. So the commies want this one lived experience thing to take all your attention away from the general good that the society is creating. So and also the lived experience ethnography bullshit is the basis for all the transgenderism and lagbhatku and the that Ibram Kendi racism se bhara hua hai America, all those kinds of things. Memoir, pehla book banda zindagi mein likh raha hai, memoir. Okay, compared to Smith's approach, the procedural device of closed impartiality in Rawlsian justice as fairness can be seen as being limited in its reach, क्योंकि outside perspective नहीं सुन रहा है कोई. Why is this a problem? There are in fact two principal grounds for requiring that the encounter of public reasoning about justice go beyond boundaries of a state or region. One, the relevance of other people's interests, okay, far away from as well as close to a given society, for the sake of preventing unfairness to those who are not party to the social contract for that society. This is a brilliant point Amartya makes, which is doesn't want Indians to follow. What is he saying? अगर तुम बाहर वालों का ओपिनियन नहीं लोगे और तुम सिर्फ सोशल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ऑफ द इनसाइडर ढूंढते रहोगे, तो उस सोसाइटी के अंदर अगर सच में किसी के साथ अनफेयरनेस हो रहा है, उसका कोई रेमेडी नहीं होगा. क्या एग्जांपल है? टुडे लिबरल मुस्लिम्स ऑफ इंग्लैंड आर सेइंग भोसरी के डोंट डू शरिया लॉ इन माय नेबरहुड, don't allow Sharia law in my neighborhood. I'll be the first one to get killed. Okay, then that famous liberal Muslim activist Yasmin Muhammad, she's saying that the same crime that would put a white parent in jail or a white husband in jail, that same exact crime is being allowed in my neighborhood because you are fucking trying to protect my cultural identity. वाह. तो मेरे सोसाइटी के साथ मेरा सोशल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट थ्योरी हो गया मेरे नेबरहुड में, अब मैं मरूं. And I know Amartya Sen is absolutely against those things, because Amartya Sen, remember, says that uh, there should not be Hindu schools in England, Sikh schools or Muslim schools. Okay, there should be only, in general, non-religious schools, or if at all you want to impart some religio-cultural education, it should be Christian schools, and your children only must go to those schools, because you can't fuck with the social cohesion of the country to that extent. Okay, and Amartya Sen acknowledges that doing that thing, breaking up the society into distinctly proud cultural communities, it will screw the country. But he says we can't do that in India. That is the weird problem of the paradox that is Amartya Sen. Winston Churchill बहुत okay. Dada, when are we bringing Dr. Arun Kumar Sharma from IITK to come and talk about Hindu sociology? Ah, interesting. Yeah, I'll have to think about it. I'm not getting too much time to do the invitations and stuff. M. Shastri is saying Amartya Sen and others want to define India's social contract. They don't want India's. हाँ, तो हमारा social contract क्या British के साथ है और American academia के साथ है? ये क्या अजीब social contract है? M. Shastri and I can actually try to. It's difficult. Any important comment? Let me have a bit of green tea now. Okay, this is just the first point. उसमें ही इतना बोलना पड़ गया. That is the brilliance of Amartya Sen, I guess. Now the second problem with that mindset of that I'll listen to only the insiders in the society. The importance of other people's perspectives to broaden our own investigation of relevant principles for the sake of avoiding under scrutinized parochialism of values and presumptions in the local community. ये तो obvious है, ये तो कॉमी ने हमको हमेशा बोला है, तो ये मुझे ज्यादा expound करने की जरूरत नहीं है. This is obvious, but it is true, of course. Even if commies misuse this idea, it is still true. Although, is it fucking true? Because our reformers have come from our societies only, man. Yeah, it might not be that true, you know. Because, and that's the thought experiment I was talking about, which we'll get to in the very next subchapter, or in the next subchapter. Okay, there's a great problem that comes up about this insider opinion or outsider opinion, which is better, etc. Okay. What do you think? It doesn't really apply to Hinduism, or does it apply in some cases, or has it applied only occasionally? Maybe it would be even better if I'm thinking about casteism, obviously, that our reformers against caste-based bad behavior came from inside the society. So whether it's Sri Purandara Dasa or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all these are people with the insider perspective. They are doing reforms and they are being effective. They have been effective. और जो आउटसाइडर है, आउटसाइडर जो कास्टिज्म को क्रिटिसाइज कर रहा है, उसमें से तो मार्क्स वेबर के अलावा बाकी सब भोसरी वाले हैं. तो आई गेस Rawls is correct in the Indian context. We need to use Amartya's words to criticize liberandos and woke ideologues. Yes, that is why I intend to do, and that is why I'm letting you guys know about these things. कि तुम भी इसका कोट निकाल के डालो हर जगह पे. And say that, you see, actually I'm with Amartya Sen on this, and you know he has said that this X is Y. Hindus will do a battle of Plassey in UK and saving with the local. Okay, Dada, Dalits are leading the Ghar Wapsi movement, right? Are Yagyavalkar Smriti, Parashar Smriti gave women's rights and remarriage. That is the thing. Now it's hard to argue against these facts. What I'm wondering is that, in the interest of standing in solidarity with Adam Smith, that because Adam Smith, remember, said Adam Smith is not saying that it can never be the insider. Okay, he's saying that it can be both the insider and outsider. So in a way, Adam Smith is still correct. His principle still stands. But I'm wondering, would the situation be even better if the hypothetical, if we had outsiders who did not have vested interests, and their number was also added along with these insiders who are also trying to reform? I wonder about this. Even Ambedkar acknowledged this. Now, next subchapter is interdependent interests and the impartial spectator. Okay, interdependent interests, and this is where he discusses India a bit, India and Bengal. By its very nature, a social contract has to be confined to the members of a sovereign state. It is a contract among the citizens of that state. But he's against CAA, but he's against NRC. But he's saying the very nature, by its very nature, a social contract has to be confined to the members of a sovereign state. It is a contract among the citizens of that state. Maybe he'll say, I'm not a social contractarian. Maybe he's an Adam Smith guy. That's why he's saying those things. This makes it hard to extend the idea to the global world, as some have tried to do, like Arundhati Roy, global citizen stuff. Indeed, it is precisely because of the contractarian mode of reasoning that many philosophers have been tempted to argue that the idea of global justice is an absurdity at the present time, without a global sovereign state, which many people have tried to do. I think there is, in some ways, the operations of a global state in the name of deep state, which is why the American libertarian right calls these people globalists. Smith's device of the impartial spectator gets around this limitation not by posing the. Now, this is where I was saying these are the ideas of Adam Smith which have been used by USA to go around bringing freedom and democracy all across the world. Of course, not in Saudi Arabia. I want the MAGA to explore aspects of Hindutva that is consistently ignored. Yeah. Do you, Mr. Sociologist, do you think Mr. Sociologist will write under a pseudonym? No, because it won't have the same impact without his credentials. No, because just writing the ideas are not enough. Credentials are also important because we live in a society where status is inevitable. People from Abrahamic societies, because otherwise it will be read just by right wingers again, isn't it? Or a little more educated right wingers like you, or just Op India readers. उसके अलावा कोई पढ़ेगा ही नहीं अगर मतलब वो फेक नेम से लिखे, anonymously लिखे. One Bengali Chakraborty surname Kami even criticized that book word by word, and that is more funny than original book. Okay. Now, Smith's device of the impartial spectator gets around this limitation of they are not really being a global governance state sovereignty who can really distribute justice all across the world. How? Not by posing the problem in terms of a negotiated contract for members of a sovereign state, but by invoking impartial arbitrators from far and near whose assessments have to be considered in order to get toward impartial reasoning. I guess the idea behind founding stuff like UN. Okay. Dealing with the global mess makes the Smithian engagement altogether necessary. In some ways, the world is grappling with the Smithian route, and while the gradual shift from national thinking to the G8 and now the G20, now to the G20 is a move in the right direction, we have to go much further for Smithian reasons. I don't know. Dada, but we do identify each other as pseudonyms anyway. To me, your College Street, Kolkata, Dada for you. Yeah, but you see, you and I don't have the problem. No, unless you are saying that it is okay if the left does not read it. In that case, maybe so. Or in that case, it could be argued that why don't they just come listen to our live streams? Okay. Other than that, if he does write, it has to be in order to impact the commies who won't read it unless they look at his credentials. Yeah, hai problem. And plus, he's a full-time academic. He literally reads and writes all day. All day he just reads and writes. Any leisure time he watches some good movies or he comes on my live stream. So उसके बाहर एक और time निकाल के anonymously कहीं पे लिखना, that would be a big problem for him. Savarkar became famous as Chitragupt first. Yes. But if Savarkar had a live stream to go to, maybe he would prefer that. Hiding. Mysterious Chitragupt. Rutvik is saying, what do you think of Ankit Shah's take on Adam Smith now? Dekho, Rutvik, I did not take that seriously anyway, no. Because I know at least that Adam Smith is in favor of capitalism, free market. So I have more respect for free market than Ankit Shah. So it's not like I was taking him seriously just because I did not read these things. So aisa nahi hai. But I know he has not read Adam Smith. But if he did read, he would understand that Adam Smith has actually more in common with Chanakya. By the way, J. Sai Deepak forced a loser academia in South Africa to respond to him. You can force lefties to respond. Yeah. He did that. But that did not happen because J. Sai Deepak was anonymous. It happened because J. Sai Deepak's book came out about 2-3 years back. It was such a hate. After that guy responded. No, of which we did a live stream critique. Have you checked it out? So only for that reason. नहीं तो anonymously होता तो नहीं होता. Ankit, okay. Now, हाँ हम कहाँ थे? तो we have to go much further for Smithian reasons. In many examples in each of his books, Adam Smith did in fact make good use of the reach of global reasoning. For example, the misdeeds of early British rule in India, including the disastrous famine of 1770. इन्होंने तो Bengal famine देखा ही नहीं. Engaged him greatly in the wealth of nations itself in 1776 itself. अब देखो, this is where I think the justification of an impartial outsider spectator comes in. But अब problem है कि यहाँ पे ना वो एक प्रॉब्लम आ जाता है कि वो अच्छा आदमी है तो ये सिस्टम काम करेगा, भोसरी वाला है तो काम नहीं करेगा. Therefore, I think in the end, Adam Smith's idea cannot be taken too seriously because, yeah, Adam Smith was himself an honest critic. He did criticize fucking England, sitting in Scotland in 1770. तो आज चुतिया ये कौन करेगा? आज तो कोई नहीं करेगा, एक दो करेंगे. डेविड फ्रॉली करेगा, उसको ही मतलब फैशिस्ट बोल के, वो कोनाडेल्स को तो बेल्जियन नेशनलिस्ट फैशिस्ट बोल रहा है, तो उसको तो सीरियसली लिया भी नहीं जाएगा. और बाकी के सब मतलब नंबर्स भी उनके पास है, वो लोग क्रिटिसाइज करेंगे भी नहीं इंडिया में हिंदूज के साथ जो इनजस्टिस हो रहा है एक्सेट्रा. So this problem cannot be solved with the outsider's perspective too much, I think. But I would go as far as to say just that at least listen for your own sake, for Hindutva's sake, for India's sake, for Hinduism's sake. At least listen to the argument. Then after listening, you can or you may or may not take it seriously, or you may or may not apply it, but at least allow them to speak. But I would not favor giving them the power to meddle here. That's the problem. Unless Adam Smith also meant just criticism, who knows? He is being fair. बाकी सब कितने कौन यहाँ fair होंगे? Which is the main problem with state, the state controlling everything or state doing everything nice for you. कि अच्छा योगी आया तो काम करेगा, same power किसी और के हाथ में दे दो, हो गया. But the intention is to have a global Hindutva magazine. There are Hindus outside India who have different experiences and faced injustices. What do you think about deep states and other things around that subject? What do you think is too broad a question? I mean, I believe that there is a deep state, yes. People from Abrahamic societies may find it difficult to reform from the inside because of their ideological, theological restrictiveness. Perhaps not exactly the case with Dharmic civilization. Perhaps, and that would, of course, the credit for that again would go to the climate of India. Okay. So listen to now what Smith says about British. When he concluded that the East India Company not only quote-unquote oppresses and domineers in the East Indies, but also was altogether quote-unquote altogether unfit to govern its territorial possessions. 1776 में बोल रहा है. He was drawing not on any oddly devised social contract. It would have been very hard to fit such a judgment into the contractarian framework, but on the kind of reach that the impartial spectator allows without confining judgments of justice to the limits of a sovereign state. So I am not sure unless I read the book. I don't know if Adam in what capacity Adam Smith means it. So I know obviously that Amartya means it in the G20 UN way. I don't know in what way Adam Smith means it. Maybe he just means writing articles about it, criticizing. For that, or writing papers. For that, I would say I would be open to listening to and reading to their works, but not in anything more than that. And I would say that you should read and listen to those perspectives, because you might actually end up finding some good criticism that you might not have thought of. ये हमेशा ही हो सकता है that you might not have thought of something, and therefore a fresh outsider's perspective might in fact benefit your society only because that eliminating that criticism, eliminating that thing that's causing the criticism would actually benefit your society. Similar issues remain extremely alive today. How America tackles this economy influences not only Americans but also those in the rest of the world. AIDS and other epidemics have moved from country to country and from continent to continent, and the medicines developed and produced in some parts of the world are important for the lives and freedoms of people far away. Also, what can be said about the environmental challenges we currently face has to be based on global reasoning about the sharing of obligations and burdens rather than on a strictly contractarian line of analysis confined within the limits of a sovereign state. Now, another subchapter begins: the impartial spectator and the avoidance of parochialism, which is kind of the forever commie argument. Though we know that the parochialism is bad and we have to avoid it, etc. Brahmachari Ashram is saying Chitragupta might be not name of Savarkar because left criticize Savarkar for calling Savarkar self-claimed Veer by that. Acha. Caribbean Hindus actually have a lot to say about Hindutva, yes. Okay. Another argument for an open approach in Smithian lines is that it works to avoid the trap of parochialism. कि हमारा अंदर है और या फिर ब्रिटिश चले गए, अब कोई मतलब ब्राउन आदमी ये स्टेट चला रहा है, तब ये स्टेट ठीक है, तब ये स्टेट एक्सेप्टेबल है. सेम चुतिया, सेम लॉज, सेम गवर्नेंस मॉडल, सेम ब्यूरोक्रेसी. व्हाइट आदमी चला रहा था तब कॉलोनाइजेशन था, ब्राउन आदमी चला रहा है तब ये बढ़िया है. वो है parochialism. If the discussion of the demands of justice is confined to a particular locality, a country or even a region larger than that, there is a possible danger of ignoring or neglecting many challenging counter arguments that might not come up in local political debates. Now, let's use Amartya Sen as a weapon here. See, from a libertarian perspective, we can now use this argument of Amartya Sen criticizing parochialism for criticizing the state, the current Indian state with capital S, whether it's the state governments or the central government, and say that it's just the same colonizing force that it forever was. Okay, because the only reason you are not criticizing it, or the only reason you are not calling it a colonizing force, and the only reason you are not calling for the end of that state in the same way you would if it was a colonizing force, according to you, by your definitions, is because you are now being fucking parochial, bro. Stop being parochial. Look at the laws and effects. Look at the bureaucracy. It's the same kind of people from same kind of backgrounds doing the same kinds of things. Therefore, it's still the colonizer running the country. Don't be parochial. Bhupendra is saying, I have watched a lot of content from Sung in YouTube. It's not as bad as it seems, yet things need to improve a lot. Like from China, Japan, South America, Africa, and so on. True, we don't talk about Indian slavery after black slavery was just, yeah. Okay, worth considering from an impartial perspective. There is a possible danger of ignoring or neglecting many challenging counter-arguments that might not come up in local political debates or be accommodated in the discourse confined to the local culture, but that are eminently worth considering from an impartial perspective. So do that and stop not considering the Indian state as colonial just because it has a brown man at the top or at the top positions all across the country. Okay, you are just being racist, first of all, against white people. Second of all, you are being parochial. Brown आदमी है तो colonial नहीं है. Amartya Sen himself is a son-in-law of Rothschild. That's why I asked about deep state in India. Yeah. Although his first wife is a legendary author. Now, this is still an active issue in contemporary legal debates. For example, among the judges of the US Supreme Court regarding the... Okay, let me mark this, okay? Therefore, this argument means Indian state is a colonizing force. Viceroy Narendra Modi, Governor General. Oh. Now we are going to be in alignment with the fucking Maoists. They also said that this is not real independence and stuff. So we'll have to be very fucking careful with our lexicon and terminology. Okay, when we do go about it or pursue this line of reasoning. But we have to argue these things. It's in fact true, but not in the way Maoists say, and not in the ways that Maoists seek solution for this. Okay. from an impartial perspective. US Supreme Court. Okay. This is still an active issue in contemporary legal debates. For example, among the judges of the US Supreme Court regarding the admissibility of invoking arguments and judgments in courts in other countries in seeking an appropriate understanding of the demands of justice in the United States. जो कि इंडिया में भी होता है ना कि इस टॉपिक में there was a judgment in England or a judgment in USA, तो चलो यही फॉलो करते हैं यहाँ पे. Smith's insistence that, quote, the eyes of the rest of the mankind, end quote, must be invoked to understand whether, quote, a punishment appears equitable, end quote, remains deeply relevant here. Adam Smith was particularly keen on avoiding the grip of parochialism in jurisprudence and moral and political reasoning. In a chapter in Moral Sentiments, revealingly entitled, now this is what I was talking about in the previous live stream, okay, that पहली बात तो ये है कि ये द वेल्थ ऑफ नेशंस बुक का असली नाम नहीं है. द नेम इज एक्चुअली ब्यूटीफुल एंड आई अगेन फॉरगॉट द नेम. द नेम इज एन इंक्वायरी इनटू द नेचर एंड कॉजेस ऑफ द वेल्थ ऑफ नेशंस. कितना ब्रिलियंट एक सीकिंग माइंडसेट वाला नेम है, उसको भोसरी के नाम दिया है द वेल्थ ऑफ नेशंस. साउंड्स लाइक अ मैनिफेस्टो, व्हिच इट्स नॉट. लिसन टू द नेम ऑफ दिस चैप्टर नाउ. ब्यूटीफुल. Of the influence of custom and fashion upon the sentiments of moral approbation and disapprobation. समझ रहे हो तो? The influence of custom and fashion, like social local norms, cultural norms, impact of that on the sentiments of moral approbation and disapprobation, approval and disapproval of things, okay. In that chapter, Adam Smith gives various examples of how discussions confined within a given society can be incarcerated. Incarcerated meaning, matlab, it's imprisoned. How discussions confined within a given society can be imprisoned within a seriously narrow understanding. Now he gets into an Adam Smith quote where our thought experiment will come up, okay. Now tell us which side you are on, okay. Let me read to you what Adam Smith wrote. So, quote, the murder of newborn infants was a practice allowed of in almost all the states of Greece. Even among the polite and civilized Athenians. वो पता है तो स्पार्टन्स अगर 300 देखा है तुमने, तुमको पता होगा कि वो कोई भी वीक थोड़ा डिफॉर्म्ड बच्चा अगर है इमीडिएटली पहाड़ से क्लिफ से फेंक देते थे कि ये वीक चूतिए को मतलब अपब्रिंगिंग करके इसको रेज करके क्या फायदा. Uninterrupted custom had by this time so thoroughly authorized that practice that not only the loose maxims of the world tolerated this barbarous prerogative, but even the doctrine of philosophers, which ought to have been more just and accurate, was led away by the established custom, and upon this, as upon many other occasions, instead of censuring, they supported the horrible abuse by far-fetched considerations of public utility. Aristotle talks of it as of what the magistrate ought upon many occasions to encourage. Okay, Aristotle also was in favor of throwing away babies. The humane Plato is of the same opinion, and with all that love of mankind which seems to animate all his writings, nowhere marks this practice with disapprobation. Plato approves of baby throwing. Aristotle approves of baby throwing. The society approves of baby throwing. The politicians approve of baby throwing. And you know what happens in these situations is that in all probability even the mother would throw away the babies. Even if the father felt some sympathy for a moment, the mother would say, no, I'm not going to take blame for this fucking weak child. I want to give birth to another child. Throw this kid down the cliff. Now my question to you is, the thought experiment is, let's see if I can create a poll here, that here Adam Smith is arguing that Aristotle and Plato were wrong to support that barbarous practice. But is Adam Smith right or not? Because yes, objectively, inherently, it is a barbarous, maybe even pre-civilizational or uncivilized act. Okay, because it happens only among animals. Therefore, you can't bring the idea of it's just natural. Because civilization means that you have some extra layer of sympathy and understanding, because your brain is more complex, your society is more complex already because of your brain being complex, and therefore you can't fucking behave like an animal whenever you want to and say that, you see, it came naturally to me, like that meat eater argument that lions eat meat, tigers eat meat, Therefore, I buy my meat at the supermarket and then have an antacid and die of heart attack at 42. Even though the lion also licks his balls and walks around naked. You don't do that. So my doubt about this situation is that, okay, I agree it is a barbarous act, but what if Aristotle and Plato were right to right to go ahead with this? Because in the end, when that practice stopped, where do we see Greece today or the Roman Empire today? What is Greece today? It's a small irrelevant country. Its economy is in the shithole. It begs Turkey कि भाई हमको छोड़ दो. नहीं नहीं, वो आइलैंड हमको दे दो, वो आइलैंड वापस करो. तो ये हाल है. Now, what if throwing away those babies would go on maintaining a society which would keep the entire world under their danda? One could argue that no, even then, the killing of the babies is not justified. So what if you have a smaller country or a weak country today? It's not even then not right to throw away those babies. But what if the poverty, the disastrous situation that Greece is today in, okay, what if because of that, it's not what if, it's obvious that because of that poverty, also so many kids have died, so many kids have been aborted because of poverty, so many people have committed suicide because of poverty, okay, so many people have died because of bad health because of that poverty in Greece, okay, तो भाई कोई किसी ना किसी को तो मरना ही है, अब क्या करें? Now let me create this poll. How to create the poll? Private chat. ये पोल क्रिएट करने के लिए मुझे यूट्यूब में जाना पड़ेगा क्या? Let me see if I can do something here. Ban, delete comment, put user in timeout. Okay, no, I will create this poll. Let me just do it from the official YouTube Google Chrome. Okay, I am on StreamYard right now. Let me just go to the YouTube channel because I'm very curious about this idea. I have not concluded anything myself at the moment. So vote, guys. My question is whether Aristotle and Plato were right to support the barbarous cause. Throw away babies then, or die of poverty in Greece, in a weak Greece now? Which side do you take? Let's see how to create a poll. Live chat, fan funding, show your support, engage, start a poll. हाँ, मिल गया. पोल दिख रहा है तो ठीक है. Let's get back to the book now. You all keep voting there. I hope the poll is visible here. Are you using EVM or paper ballot? हाँ, यहाँ पे भी हैक मत कर देना भोसड़ी वालों. It's a classic trolley problem. Yes. Somebody gifted me membership. I don't know who. Bhupendra Mondal gifted to you. Okay, let's get back to the book now. The juicy parts of the book. We already got through many juicy parts. It's a brilliant introduction, I think. As per C.K. Raju, Aristotle and Plato never existed. Okay. Yeah, which is why I don't. I'm going on decreasing my reading of Hindutva scholars, because even if it is so, the truth does not matter today. It does not matter if Aristotle and Plato really existed or not. It matters what the mainstream academia says, what the power structures say. So if I get into an argument with someone and say that no, see, Aristotle and Plato didn't even exist, so kya kare? Let's not think about that and argue on some other basis. I'll be laughed out of the conversation. So useless, pointless endeavor. Just like maybe Chanakya did not really exist. Some historians have said it. Who gives a shit? हम क्या करें? चाणक्य है कि नहीं वो सोच के. मेन स्ट्रीम कंसेंसस बन गया है, उसके ऊपर ही बाकी सब आर्ग्यूमेंट करना होगा. Too novel a theory from someone with no credentials in that field is too much of a waste of time. Why Aristotle and Plato did not think we could reform such practices? Reform करके क्या करे? मतलब वो weak बच्चे को कम फेंके. Someone even said Kalidas didn't exist. Yeah, Chanakya doesn't exist has been said by some people. Okay, let's see how the vote is going on. I can't see the vote myself. Let me see. Yeah. No, too barbarous. Ahaha. So people are with Adam Smith here. Nice. 43% are saying Plato were right. फेंक दो बच्चों को cliff से, because Greece became too weak. We don't want the fall of the Roman Empire. Okay, let's get back now. So now Amartya is saying Adam Smith's insistence that we must view our sentiments at a certain distance from us thus extends beyond the imperative to scrutinize the influence of vested interests to the need to question the captivating hold of entrenched traditions and customs. A beautifully written sentence, which is why I'm saying that actually Amartya Sen is doing a brilliant job with writing this introduction on a neutral level. See, Amartya Sen immediately goes to what might be the concern of us, okay? People like us. He's saying, now maybe he's rebranding Adam Smith at least, he's at least addressing that concern. What is our main concern when it comes to the outsider giving opinions in India, about India? That fucker might have vested interests. Amartya Sen is already addressing the vested interest argument. He's saying Adam Smith is moving on beyond vested interests. He does not bother about that too much. Maybe we'll see how much he bothers or does not bother. Maybe he has hope that the vested interest part will be taken care of by the law enforcement institutions, maybe. That मतलब अगर किसी का वर्ड सीरियसली लेना है, अगर किसी का एटलीस्ट वर्ड्स में पॉलिसी मेकिंग पावर है, तो उसका तो फंडिंग चेक करना ही पड़ेगा. ओके, ये बिना फंडिंग चेक किए किसी का भी बात सुनते फिर रहे, उसमें प्रॉब्लम है. तो मे बी आई डोंट नो एडम स्मिथ कैन आर्ग्यू, और इवन इफ वी कंसिडर दैट इवन इफ दिस कैन बी डन, then what will have to be done is that all the funding is checked and UN's danda is for doing that, then this can operate. It's very close. Many claim that even Chanakya I went to one of these OBC babas and he was supporting burkha. Oh nice. अरे टू बारबरस तो 62% बोल दिया. Everyone wants the fall of Greece. ये socialist. I'm joking, okay? I'm not decided about whether I support the fall of Greece or not, because we don't have enough data points, right? After all, it's a fucking hypothetical poll only, because what if Rome fell even without throwing those babies? Okay, or even after stopping the throwing away of babies, what if Greece could have done more to strengthen its country? What if they did not do those things? Okay, वो problem तो है ही, वो तो complete hypothetical problem है. दादा EVM got hacked. यही बात है. Everywhere commies are winning. So Adam Smith is going beyond the imperative to scrutinize the influence of vested interests. He's going to the need to question the captivating hold of entrenched traditions and customs. इसीलिए अमेरिकन्स यहाँ पे इतना फुदक रहे हैं. In scrutinizing established rules today, including the permissibility of practices as different as the stoning of adulterous women under the Taliban or some localities in some Indian states, and the widespread use of capital punishment, for example, in China, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and the United States, to name the 4 countries that led the world in the frequency of capital punishment in 2008. The perspectives of some of other people from far as well as near have a relevance for reasons that Smith presented definitively in the moral sentiments. Now another subchapter begins: inclinations, inclusion, and equality. This is where great things happen. This is the last chapter, right? Yeah, just 2-3 pages more. This is one of the most beautiful works of Adam Smith. I mean, the beautiful things Adam Smith will have said so far. This is the part about where Adam Smith, again, a completely unheard of idea in 1776 in the Enlightenment era, a white scholar, a white intellectual, saying that no, black, Indians, white people, all races are essentially same. Their potential is same. Only thing holding back is their circumstances, their education, their nature, or their country's economic system, etc., which Thomas Well believes in, of course. Which, by the way, those who have not listened to the first live stream, which Kant did not believe in. Immanuel Kant I think still needs to be read, needs to be respected. But it's just an interesting thing to note that, remember, he believed that black people are completely useless and Indians may be uneducated, dumb, and useless. But if you like train them or lead them onto the correct direction, you can get some work done by them. But you'll still have to read his stuff. It would be the same as if in the case of, like, you dislike decoloniality as a subject. Okay, you don't read or listen to anything J. Deepak says. Or Winston Churchill, entirety of his identity is known in terms of the Bengal famine, which should not be the case, because, like I said a few days back, Winston Churchill was one of those people who said that Africa is running because of Indians, whether it's the labor creating the trains, or it's the bankers running the financial institutions, the shopkeepers. Africa stands because of basically Indians. That's what Winston Churchill said. I don't believe that some people are eternally doomed, right? Some localities in some Indian Neener, interestingly, Amartya Sen, in the interest of being fair in some contexts, actually says something insanely controversial. Do you know about the thing that research which got some legendary biologists or neurobiologists cancelled from mainstream academia, who said that different races have different IQs? Okay. Interestingly, here Amartya Sen brings that argument to say that, even though there are limitations to Adam Smith's idea that everyone is essentially equal, what I am pointing out here is that Adam Smith was just a very good man. That's what Amartya Sen concludes from this idea. Okay, very very interesting stuff. Okay, 62%. अरे भाई कोई और भी वोट दो, वोट तो एक जगह पे स्थगित हो गया. So last topic of the introduction: inclinations, inclusion, and equality. I end with some remarks on Smith's personal sentiments. This introduction has been concerned almost entirely with Smith's reasoning rather than with his inclinations and predispositions. So here we are basically getting into what were his personal, views. What was the kind of man he was? Okay, what kind of man he was. This has some rationale, meaning why am I doing this at the end of this introduction? I believe Smith was right in thinking, as I quoted him earlier, that, quote, our most solid judgments with regard to right and wrong are regulated by maxims and ideas derived from an induction of reason, which is basically the Foucaultian point as well, that discourse rules. Okay, and you all know that the discourse narrative is king. And yet Adam Smith also argued, again quite persuasively, that, quote, this is a beautiful sentence, I loved this from Adam Smith, quote, our first perceptions of right and wrong, meaning the initial reactions to an incident or to something, to anything, cannot be the object of reason, but they are an object of immediate sense and feeling. Now, what Amartya Sen clarifies, maybe Adam Smith has said so himself as well, that yes, your initial reaction, your first perception may not be based on reason, it may be just sense and feeling, but if you think about it far enough, flesh it out enough, you may reach the same conclusion that you reached on your first impression as well, but that one was not based on reason. This one is based on reason, even though the answer is same. Okay, let's think of an example. You see a dog about to die on the street. A car or bike has just run over him. Two people might have different initial reactions to it. That, yes, these fucking dogs always almost end up killing humans by trying to cross the roads in different points of time. That's his initial reaction. He maybe thinks about it, and then few hours later he concludes that, no, in fact, how much can I really expect from a dumb fucking stray dog? Or maybe he thinks that, no, सरकार को कुछ करना चाहिए, मारो भोसरी के ये stray dogs को. So now I don't want to give a value judgment here, but one of these views is actually right, and one of these views are wrong. But he could have reached the other view as well, that no, yeah, you can't expect more. So after thinking a lot, you may or may not agree with your initial position, but your initial position is definitely not based on reason. But that is not the point here. I digressed and elaborated too much because I'm too excited about what he's saying here. The point is, even though our first perceptions may change in response to critical examination, as Smith also noted, these perceptions can still give us interesting clues about our inclinations and emotional predispositions. That's the point of this particular chapter, that there, at that moment, you can find out something about yourself. Why was your initial reaction that? Your initial reaction also might be that, yeah, it's not the fault of the dog. Or your initial reaction might be, fuck these dogs. Okay. So, what kind of a man are you? One of the strike, I'm not giving a value judgment. Or maybe I am. Fuck you, dog haters. One of the striking features of Smith's personality is his inclination to be as inclusive as possible, not only locally but also globally. He does acknowledge that we may have special obligations to our neighbors, but the reach of our concern must ultimately transcend that confinement. I have already discussed the strikingly global feature of Smith's moral and political inclusiveness. To that, I want to add the understanding that Smith's ethical inclusiveness is matched by a strong epistemic inclination to see people everywhere as being essentially similar. There is something quite remarkable in the ease with which Smith rides over barriers of class, gender, race, and nationality to see human beings with a presumed equality of potential and without any innate difference in intrinsic talents and abilities. Adam Smith's empirical presumption of equality of potential, equality of potential, okay? Not equality of anything else, equality of potential, हाँ, हो सकता है इससे. उसके बाद वो खुद काम करेगा कि नहीं, काम करने का एडुकेशन है कि नहीं, वो सब अलग बात है. Smith's empirical presumption of equality of potential of different human beings is stated most explicitly in The Wealth of Nations. He says, listen to this quote from Adam Smith. Now, those who are following a bit of Thomaswell these days will know that where Thomaswell draws these from, okay? I did not realize until reading this book exactly how Smithian Thomaswell is. I thought he was drawing mainly from Milton Friedman. I should have known that these people are very, very Adam Smithian. Okay. These are, for the first time, these arguments have become popular today from the mouth of Thomaswell. And he gets a little bit of extra credential for being a black economist who says these things. But these are directly Adam Smith's ideas. Listen to this, you'll be surprised. Adam Smith is saying, quote, "The difference of natural talents in different men is in reality much less than we are aware of." The difference we think there is actually not that much of a difference. And the very different genius which appears to distinguish men of different professions when grown up to maturity, is not upon many occasions so much the cause as the effect of the division of labor. The difference between the most dissimilar characters, between a philosopher and a common street porter, for example, seems to arise not so much from nature as from habit, custom, and education. When they came into the world, and for the first 6 or 8 years of their existence, they were perhaps very much alike, and neither their parents nor their playfellows could have perceived any remarkable difference. End quote. And this is why Thomaswell goes on saying good things about India, that Indians are first successful everywhere, India's economy is fucked. Now, Amartya Sen gives that weird counter argument, okay, which is now a cancel. Now, he wrote this in 2009. No, those people got cancelled after 2015 or 16, I think, who said that different races have different IQs. Okay, so Amartya Sen could easily get cancelled today if people knew what he has written in this. But no one has read this book. पहली बात तो एडम स्मिथ भोसरी वाले कैपिटलिस्ट का बुक है. फिर उसमें एक इंट्रोडक्शन में, एक चैप्टर में, एक लाइन में अमर्त्य सेन ने उसको जस्टिफाई कर दिया है. जस्टिफाई नहीं, एटलीस्ट मतलब मेंशन भी किया है एज अ लेजिटिमेट पॉइंट. Okay. It is easy to see that there is some real tension here between Adam Smith's firmly articulated empirical view and the scientific evidence for genetic differences between individuals within the same race or nationality or class. There are problems with this argument for another reason, that genetics के बेसिस पे IQ अलग होता है. उसमें प्रॉब्लम है कि वो मतलब उसके बेसिस पे ही वो पहले यूजेनिक्स होता था, जिसके बेसिस पे एंथ्रोपोलॉजी होता था, जिसके बेसिस पे ही वो ब्लैक पॉपुलेशन खत्म होना चाहिए, ट्रांसजेंडरिज्म अच्छा है, एबॉर्शन कर देना चाहिए सबका, ये सब तब हुआ था। और ब्लैक पॉपुलेशन के खिलाफ भी वो एबॉर्शन या फिर उनका पॉपुलेशन घटा देना, गरीब लोगों का भी, ये यूजेनिक्स था। ये इसलिए नहीं किया गया था कि ब्लैक लोग खराब है, गरीब लोग खराब है। दे वर टेकिंग द सिंपैथेटिक व्यू के बेचारे ये पैदा होके भी क्या करेंगे भोसड़ी वाले, तो इससे अच्छा है पैदा ना हो। That is the kind of view that I get today from commies, from actually a person in the field of anthropology. And as I say that when you create an institution for a very specific goal, no matter how much you tweak it, it more often than not ends up doing the same thing, whether it's reservations, uh, sociology, anthropology, or sociology as we know it today, anthropology as we know it today, Indian state. So the most common argument that I get from people while debating abortion is that she's too poor and the life of a poor person is not that great. So why bring such a person? And would you want to grow up in that poor household? So look at the insane amounts of bullshit assumptions here. Like, first of all, poor people don't have a right to life, therefore, because their life sucks in comparison to a richer person. Secondly, poor in comparison to whom? Anyone who says this only means poorer in comparison to them. I was talking about this to an anthropologist who is a middle class Kolkata person. Okay, girl. So many, many rich people would say her life is too troublesome to be alive. Okay, she does not have AC in her room. She has to live with elderly grandparents. She has to help them out instead of servants helping them out. क्या जिंदगी है भोसरी के, इसको तो अबॉर्ट कर देना चाहिए था। तो ये पूरी तरह से एक सब्जेक्टिव बुलशिट आर्गुमेंट है। Secondly, you are ignoring the fact that just because you kill off that section of the society in the name of their poverty doesn't mean that poverty will cease to exist. This is what Thomas Sowell, as a black economist, said this to a white liberal feminist in one of the debates being moderated by Milton Friedman. It's on YouTube, check it out, with horrible audio though. The woman goes on saying that the bottom 20% is poor, the bottom 20% is poor. Thomas Sowell at one point says, what, you're going to eliminate the bottom 20%? What's going to be the impact of that? Because mathematically speaking, there's always, now I'm coming back to my words, okay? I've stopped quoting Thomas Sowell at the moment. So I'm saying that it's obvious that there will be someone or the other who is the bottom 20% who will be considered very poor by the top 80%. तो ये bottom 20% को eliminate करके चुतिया क्या होगा? Another point is that you are also presuming that that person will definitely have a bad life. Fucking read Dostoevsky, bitches. Look at Dostoevsky's life. Look at the characters in Dostoevsky's stories. A recurring theme is poor family, one room, which was his own life as well. He grew up in pretty lower middle class conditions. His father was a very poor doctor, but brilliant, beautiful family bond. Another point is you are assuming that poor person can't get rich at all. कोई चांस ही नहीं है. तो ये जो 7-8 जो ये चुतिया assumption के ऊपर जिंदा है ये आर्ग्यूमेंट के, तो गरीब है या फिर मतलब जेनेटिकली लो IQ है, तो ये अगर ज्यादा बोलना शुरू हो गया फिर से ये यूजेनिक्स का चुतियापा आ सकता है. इसके ऊपर ही बेस था ये. आई एम कमिंग टू कोलकाता. Bhupendra Mandal, probably no. Are you pro euthanasia? Euthanasia, yes, after the brain is dead, when it's a vegetable condition, then. Let's see, have I thought about it enough? I have thought about the abortion problem. I have not thought about the euthanasia problem that much. Assisted suicide to theek hai. Now it's obviously very stupid, but not assisted suicide. I mean the stuff that's going on in Canada. The what some suicide they have named it. But assisted suicide, I think, is a better, of course, more legitimate thing to stand by. Euthanasia, when it's not happening with the consent of the person, because the person cannot theoretically give consent, there I think it's okay to be in favor of that, because legally, morally speaking, we do consider that many people can't give consent, like people who are under 18. They are too immature to give consent, and this person in coma is too much in coma to give consent. So ab kya kare? Someone has to take matters into their own hands. So yeah, I'm in favor of euthanasia. To each their own. या टू ईच देयर ओन तो ठीक है, बट ओन तो मतलब सेंस में नहीं है, तो वो पूरी तरह से अरे ये 50-50 कैसे हो गया वो पोल? अरे भाई, या आई एम नॉट एंटीनेटलिस्ट. ओके, कहाँ थे? हाँ, तो now Amartya also makes a clarification, okay, after saying that the scientific evidence for genetic differences between individuals within the same race or nationality or class is in actually conflict with Adam Smith's like pretty fluffy nice claim here. But Amartya says it is not so important whether the quoted statement is correct. What is really important to appreciate is that Adam Smith's epistemic generalization reflects not only what he very much wanted to believe, but also what he thought would be the right assumption to make. This is a brilliant libertarian point, actually, that in this context, and in some contexts it often happens that there's no point saying that, there's no point operating on the belief or on the fact that in fact genetically not everyone has the same potential because of their IQ, because you can't let that affect policy at all. And if we can't let that affect policy at all, so what's even the point of highlighting this? So it's just a fact that you can know, maybe in the interest of not feeling too depressed for not being successful in your life. But again, that can become an excuse very quickly that हमारा तो अब low IQ है, हम क्या करें? So I guess it's better to eliminate this discourse completely or ignore it completely. But more importantly, there are other examples of such situations as well, like the idea that Bengalis are bad at business. It may be a fact, it may or may not be a fact. We can't possibly have data to prove this. But what the fuck do we get out of saying it? We don't get anything out of saying it. Okay. The fact is Bengalis have to get into business. The fact is Bengal has to have some semblance of a capitalism or free markets. And therefore, we cannot go around discouraging Bengalis from the idea of business anymore. This is that sort of a situation, that what he thought would be the right assumption to make. So it is the right assumption to make that if an economic situation, a legit situation comes up, Bengalis will do great in business, because what that ends up doing is, even if a situation like that comes up and Bengalis don't do well in that, so be it. The general economy of the state increases, and maybe in the end it's done by that businesses, in that situation business is essentially run by, again, non-Bengalis only. Fair enough. But the condition of the state won't increase if Bengalis today, a large chunk of who follow Bengali chauvinist ideas regardless of their political affiliation, if they subscribe, if they start believing the idea that either Bengalis are not good at business, or they simply hate every fucking ideology because some people in that ideology are saying that Bengalis are bad at business. That's the problem. It's a pointless battle to pick. That's all I'm saying. What is really important to appreciate is that Adam Smith's epistemic generalization reflects not only what he very much wanted to believe, but also what he thought would be the right assumption to make. The differences between groups largely reflect differences of education and opportunities rather than differences of natural talents. क्योंकि ये ठीक है, ये एकदम ठीक है, एकदम ठीक बोला है कि largely तो यही true है, largely तो in broadly speaking तो it depends on education, qualification, upbringing, economic condition of the economic system of the country. Okay, all things equal, उसमें शायद कुछ problem हो सकता है. मगर आईक्यू कम है, बंगालियों से बिजनेस नहीं होगा, ये सब बोल के वी कांट अफोर्ड टू डिले अ फ्री मार्केट. तो फ्री मार्केट, ग्रेट एजुकेशन, ग्रेट अपब्रिंगिंग, ये सब करो, उसके बाद वी कैन हैव द लग्जरी ऑफ डिस्कसिंग दैट मे बी आई एम नॉट सक्सेसफुल बिकॉज ऑफ माई आईक्यू. You need to have a good community around you and be risk taking for being able to do business. Yeah. Differences between groups largely reflect differences of education and opportunities rather than differences of natural talents. Opportunity बढ़ाने के लिए तो capitalism ही लगेगा. When dealing with groups of people without any pre-identified genetic differentiation among them, हाँ, ऐसा तो नहीं है सबका pre-identify कोई genetic differentiation हमको पता है. Okay, like let's say today, me and Abhay are growing up. We have no fucking clue who has more IQ. We are not going around testing it. तो अब किसके बेसिस पे हम पॉलिसी खड़ा कर दे? मारवाड़ी है, उसको बिजनेस अच्छा आता है, उसके बेसिस पे उसको कुछ अलग से कुछ मतलब कॉमर्स में मारवाड़ी रिजर्वेशन दे दे, और हमको इंग्लिश लिटरेचर में और या बंगाली लिटरेचर में रिजर्वेशन दे दे. That would be the birth-based caste system back again. It is not only that the working class has much less access to education, and good education in particular, than people of rank and fortune, but also that the work of the working class gives them far less occasion to cultivate their minds than the work of the privileged. ये तो हम सबको पता है. Now, Adam Smith writes, the employments of people of some rank and fortune besides are seldom such as harass them from morning to night. Right? जो कि रैंक एंड फॉर्चून में है, उसका प्रोफेशन ऐसा नहीं है कि उसको मॉर्निंग से रात तक मतलब हैरेसमेंट चल रहा है उसका. They generally have a good deal of leisure during which they may perfect themselves in every branch either of useful or ornamental knowledge of which they may have laid the foundation or for which they may have acquired some taste in the earlier part of life. क्या brilliant deduction है. It is otherwise, and see, this is how I know Ankit Shah has not actually read Adam Smith. It is otherwise with the common people. They have little, it is otherwise meaning not the case, okay? It is not the case with the common people. They have little time to spare for education. Their parents can scarce afford to maintain them even in infancy. As soon as they are able to work, they must apply to some trade by which they can earn their subsistence. That trade too is generally so simple and uniform as to give little exercise to the understanding, while at the same time their labor is both so constant and so severe that it leaves them little leisure and less inclination to apply to or even to think of anything else. दोस्तों, कम्युनिज्म में सबको गुंडा बनने की अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलेगी, कोई रिजर्वेशन नहीं मिलेगा, ये क्या बात हो गया. मैं लिखा था कि बंगालियों को व्यापार करना नहीं आता, पर ये नहीं कहा कि इसे बदल नहीं सकते. Yes, but even then it's a very pointless thing to say. You're going to achieve nothing out of saying that. You're not going to convince anyone. You're not going to further a great argument. You're not going to win an argument. You're not going to, let's say, open anyone's minds. You're not going to further great policy. कुछ नहीं होता है उससे. Dada, do you agree with me that Ankit Shah's ideas are not fully formed on de-dollarization or the Sanatan economics idea? On de-dollarization, no, I think it's still happening. Things are on the way. On Sanatan economics, so I think he said it himself when pushed by Prakhar that more people have to work on it. Leaves them little leisure. Okay, now that quote is over. Now Amartya is writing that while it is important to understand Adam Smith's inclination, indeed longing to believe in the equal potential of all human beings, what is crucial to his policy prescriptions is his emphasis on the class-related neglect of human talents. अब थोड़ा rebranding होगा फिर से, हाँ. Class-related neglect of human talents through the lack of education and the unimaginative nature of the work that many members of the working classes are forced to do by economic circumstances which don't change in India because of things prescribed by Amartya Sen. Class divisions, Adam Smith argued, reflect this inequality of opportunity rather than indicating differences of inborn talents and abilities. Rebranding हो रहा है. The presumption of similarity of the presumption of similarity of intrinsic talents is accepted by Adam Smith not only within nations but also across the boundaries of states and cultures, as is clear from what he says in both the Moral Sentiments and the Wealth of Nations. The assumption of racial or regional inferiority of some people, which had quite a hold on the minds of many of his contemporaries, Immanuel Kant, is completely absent in Smith's writings. वाह वाह मोदी जी वाह, इसके लिए एटलीस्ट हमको तो अप्रिशिएट करना ही चाहिए. And Adam Smith does not address these points only abstractly. For example, he discusses why he thinks Chinese and Indian producers are really not in any different league of productivity from Europeans. See where Thomas Sowell was directly drawing these arguments from. He was fucking drawing those arguments from a book written in 1776. Thomas Sowell has been writing these things for 30 years, drawing from things written in 1776. Thomas Sowell पॉपुलर होता है 2020 में, कोरोना में बैठ के सब बेन शपीरो सुन के थॉमस सोएल सुनना शुरू करता है. उसके बाद क्या क्या लक है देखो चीजों का, क्या क्या हरामीगिरी होता है एकेडेमिया में. Listen to these examples now. So Adam Smith discusses why he thinks Chinese and Indian producers are really not in any different league of productivity from Europeans, even though their institutions may handicap fucking them. It's all about your local economics. You know, this is why I hate when commies say all the time that we Indians are very corrupt. Okay, so now you are making the white supremacist claim. So America is not corrupt because it's filled with white people. What the fuck is the argument? Adam Smith is inclined to see the relative backwardness of African economic progress in terms of the continent's geographical disadvantages, which has now been popularized by Thomas Sowell. Having nothing like the quote-unquote, okay, now we are getting into a small quote from Thomas Sowell, okay? Gulfs of Arabia, Persia, India, Bengal, and Siam in Asia, end quote, that provide opportunities for trade to other people. Adam Smith is also incensed by the presumption of superior racial endowments of the white man, and at one stage even bursts into unconcealed wrath. Quote, there is not a Negro from the coast of Africa who does not, in this respect, possess a degree of magnanimity which the soul of his sordid master is too often scarce capable of conceiving. 1776 में बोल रहा है कि स्लेव का बुद्धि उसके मास्टर के जैसा ही है. क्या आदमी है सोचो. Adam Smith talks about East India Company too in his big magnum opus. Oh, Neener, did you miss the part? Or was it in the previous live stream? We discussed that he criticized East India Company. Check out the previous live stream, okay? That the quote has been discussed here. That in 1776 he's writing that the British government is absolutely incapable of ruling this country. Okay. So, okay, we discussed this, I think, in this live stream only. I'm getting a little hazy on the detail. Okay. Abhay saying, why is India corrupt? How to rectify it with such a rotten bureaucracy? You can't. It's corrupt because of the bureaucracy, because of the power of the bureaucracy. Okay. तुम किसी को अनअकाउंटेबल क्षमता देके बोल रहे हो अब माई बाप हो हमारा काम कर दो, वो करप्ट नहीं होगा तो वो क्या करेगा? ओके, unless everyone is the honest rishi that we have to wait for. It's because of bureaucracy that we are corrupt. It's because of the insane power that these people have that we are corrupt. Or consider Adam Smith's odd exuberance about the nutritional benefits of the potato. Why is potato important? Because back then people in England used to hate Irish people and used to make fun of the potato diets of Irish people. Okay. So in that context, Adam Smith is defending even these people. Kya ajeeb aadmi hai. Quote, the chairmen, porters and coal heavers in London and those unfortunate women who live by prostitution, the strongest men and the most beautiful women perhaps in the British dominions are said to be the greater part of them from the lowest rank of people in Ireland. Okay. Who are generally fed with this root potato. No food can afford a more decisive proof of its nourishing quality or of its being peculiarly suitable to the health of the human constitution. And today we know that potato is one of those basically absolutely complete kinds of foods. It has a little bit of everything. हाँ नीनार मेरा चैनल ब्लॉक करवाएगा. His extraordinary excursion. Okay, then the quote is over. Now, last two paragraphs. Amartya Sen is saying Adam Smith's extraordinary excursion into nutritional wisdom serves the indirect purpose of standing up for the Irish against ridicule by the English, including the ridicule of Ireland's dependence on potato, which goes back even to Edmund Spenser's Fairy Queen in the 16th century. The global reach of Smith's moral and political reasoning is, of course, quite a distinctive feature of his thought. Okay, quite a distinctive feature of his thought. But it is strongly supplemented by his belief that all humans are born with similar potential, and most importantly for policymaking, that the inequalities in the world reflect socially generated rather than natural disparities. There is a vision here that has a remarkably current ring. The continuing global relevance of Adam Smith's ideas is quite astonishing, and it is a tribute to the power of Smith's mind that this global vision is so forcefully presented by someone who a quarter of a millennium ago lived most of his life in considerable seclusion in a tiny coastal Scottish town. Smith's analysis and explorations are of critical importance for any society in the world in which issues of morals, politics, and economics receive attention, and the theory of moral sentiments is a global manifesto of profound significance to the interdependent world in which we live. This is indeed a book of amazing reach and contemporary relevance. And now I want to do another quote, guys, so wait a bit. That's the end of the introduction. So the quote I want to, the poll I want to do now is that what do you think of the job Amartya Sen has done? तो इसको कैसे क्लोज करें? अच्छा वहां पे 53% जीत गया. एरिस्टोटल एंड प्लेटो वर राइट. सब बेबीज को फेंक दो पहाड़ के ऊपर से. ग्रीस को बचाओ, रोमन एम्पायर को बचाओ. वाह वाह वाह, कितने मतलब हार्टलेस इंसान है हमारे लाइव चैट में. शेम ऑन यू. एंडिंग द पोल नाउ. तो हाउ टू स्टार्ट अ न्यू पोल? Yeah, let me start the new poll. What do you think of what kind of job do you think Amartya Sen did? Okay, so do you think he did a brilliant job, or do you think I can add multiple answers, right? Yeah. How was this essay? You could call it brilliant with the justification that let me make the arguments clear in favor of all the three options I'm going to give. You could say it's brilliant because even though he doesn't agree with a lot of things that Adam Smith himself says, he steelmans them so fairly. Okay, brilliant for that. Or the second option would be, well, maybe, because a lot of things that he says he does agree with, he does not want them to happen in India. Or add option, no, he did a bad job here, and he is as evil as you thought you were, even without knowing about this article. What I'm getting at is, did this article change your mind about his at least academic skills? Okay, so vote now. Dada, who do you think is the Indian equivalent of Adam Smith? Based on the introduction, I think Chanakya. If you mean someone alive, then Sanjeev Sanyal to some extent. Subramaniam Swami maybe. Who else is there? No one, right? There are no two free market people. Leftists have hidden Adam Smith from India. That सब कुछ बोल के hide कर दिया. Nobody studied economics in India. Ninad is saying PC Mahalanobis or whatever he was. Arey, why would PC Mahalanobis be Adam Smith? Because अरे नीनर क्या बोल रहा है? ये sarcastically बोल रहा है क्या? PC Mahalanobis is the opposite of Adam Smith. No, he was the guy who did central planning and screwed the economy. It is brilliant for us Indians because nobody else in India talks of Adam Smith. Expected Librando praise. Good scholarship should be respected. Yeah. Typical job. EVM hack reversed. We are winning. Oh, you mean free market? Yeah. I guess he means it that way only. Or you meant okay. So Nina thought in terms of the reach and impact. So M Shastri, in what sense did you mean it? In terms of his ideology or in terms of how impactful he is? Then yes, PC Molanovich maybe. He is Megatron of Optimus Prime. Indian economy will boom as more Indians learn of Adam Smith. Yes. Sanjeev Sanyal, yeah. Give credit where it's due. Fair enough. Let's see how the vote is going. 50-50. Oh, no. Well, maybe 50%. 25% ने बोला है brilliant. लोल बोला है 25% ने. अच्छा, no किसी ने नहीं बोला है. ये तो और भी दर्दनाक हादसा है. In terms of ideology, हाँ, तब तो Sanjeev Sanyal, Subramaniam Swamy. Okay then, this was a great discussion, guys. His impact with regard to academics. Oh, then again PC Malanovich or Amartya Sen himself. No, Amartya Sen के साथ जानकी बाखले वाला काम हो गया. Yeah, a little. Yeah, basically yes. Adam Smith started economics as a pedagogy. Yes. Voting is going on. अभी भी semi है. I try to keep my bias at bay as much as possible. Yeah. Dada, read We Owe an Apology to Adam Smith. Are bapre. Who has written this? I don't have bandwidth or basically the physical capability to read it right now, but I will. Oh, you mentioned it earlier also, no? Yes. Fuck, I keep forgetting, man. Please keep reminding me, okay? Usually when I think of something that, okay, this was a great recommendation, let's do it, I'm not near the computer, okay? So I have to write it down in a specific notepad in my computer, only then I'll remember. And also sometime remind me to discuss the library, book library discussion of again, I forgot that. Aap kaun jaat ho gayi? Ravish Kumar and that professor, okay? Or you all can check it out yourself as well, so you all can make more educated comments when we do watch it. Dada, what do you think of Abhijit Banerjee? It's Amartya Sen light. There was a Marxist who recently made a long video critiquing Thomas Sowell. Can you review it? Okay. Yeah, I will. If you can post YouTube links and please keep reminding me. How long were we? 2.5 घंटा हो गया. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for joining the live stream. Bye. Good night.
वंशवरूढं महाभीमं गुणाद्रष्टाम्बरप्रदम् अस्य युक्तं त्रिनेत्रं च कपालकर्णिकाकरा मुक्तकेशीं ललज्जयः पिबन्तीं रुधिरं चतुर्बाहु समायुक्तं वराभायकरं स्मरेत् चतुर्बाहु समायुक्तं वराभायकरं स्मरेत् काली